is Monday. What it is? Monday, the 11th of March, 2019. And this is the MMA Hour right here on MMAFightingonSBN.com. My name is Luke Thomas. I'm the host of this program. Thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Fun show planned for you guys today. The order's going to be a little bit strange, a little bit turned around, but here's what's going to happen. All the show elements that you know and love. We'll get to tweets with the hashtag the MMA Hour. Your calls at 844-866-2468. I have a very special Monday Morning Analyst today, though. But we have not 3, but 4 guests because we had a late edition. Alexander Gustafsson is going to be here to talk about his fight against Anthony Smith. We're going to have Mickey Gall. I heard something about his physical condition. It got me a little bit concerned, so I wanted to have him on the show to talk about it. Clay Guida is going to be here because he's fighting BJ Penn at UFC 237. And Ralek Gracie, it appears he is trying to resurrect Metamoris. Is that so? Is that even possible? We'll talk to him about that today on the show. Plus a whole lot more. Sundry topics like UFC Wichita and the like. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you're doing well. It is, in fact, Monday. And, yeah. Did you like the fights over the weekend? They were okay. They weren't bad. My ESPN Plus feed kind of died on the Vine. And people were like, oh, because it died on my phone. I have the Google Pixel 2. And then it died on I have a new Samsung TV. It's not even a year old. And it's got, all the, it's got apps built in. And, of course, you can add other ones. Both died. And everyone's like, oh, it's your router. Well, how could it be my router if my phone's not connected to my internet at home? So can't be that. Or it could be that ESPN Plus, while a mostly decent service, if not outright good, still a little buggy. Still got some problems. So aside from that, though, the fights were fun, and it was nice to see like a vintage JDS get out there and get a win, and by frankly dueling with Derek Lewis. So there you go. And then this weekend, you've got Masvidal versus Till, which should be a lot of fun. Back to ESPN Plus there as well. So we're going to see how things go. This might be fun. So here's how it's going to go. We're going to start out with some tweets, and then we're going to get to Clay. We're going to have to break up the sound off. I didn't want to do that, but we're just kind of stuck in that position. So we'll do sound off. Then we'll get to Ralek. Then we'll get to Mickey. And then I'll do the Monday Morning Analyst in the second hour of the show, and then we'll finish off with the rest of the calls. When we put it on YouTube, we'll stitch everything together. Yeah? All right. With that in mind, let us kick off things here on the show. Let's start today with a round of tweets. All right, 5 minutes on the clock. Clock starts when the first tweet goes up. Let's see on the screen because I have to be able to see him as well. What do we got here? Oh, no, that's the Skype machine. There we go. All right, kick it off. Let's do it. Clock starts. There we go. What do you think would make the biggest impact to the legitimacy of MMA? One set of unified rules for the world, union for the fighters, refs having a central association that can speak on their behalf. That'd be a big one. Or changes to the scoring system and judges. The union one would be the answer, quite frankly. The other ones would be beneficial except for the same unified rules. You want the ability for example, if you have a North American promotion or even a European promotion, you are largely going to be limited by what the governing, not bodies, but the states allow. So, like, you can't just straight up change the rules when you go fight in Oklahoma. That reduces the ability of a competitor to innovate on the rules relative to the UFC. One is not hampered by that, so you actually want to keep that around, but it would be the union. That touches so many different issues. It wouldn't solve all their problems. It might only make a small dent in some, but it'd be a big dent, and really that's what's missing. That's what's needed next. Is JDS resurgent, or is the heavyweight division just a mess, and he's one of the few left standing? Maybe a little bit of both. I do think he has reinvented his style, or at least accommodated his style in certain ways, although there wasn't much evidence of that on Saturday night. Again, as I indicated, it was very much throwback JDS. But here's what I would say. Heavyweight, more than other divisions, allows for comebacks. The fighters themselves are older, which I think indicates that if you're a reasonable talent there, which I think you would all call JDS a reasonable talent, being a former champion, you can have several acts over time. That's not really possible in the lightweight division. It can be possible if you switch from like welter to middle or middle to light heavy, but you can stay at heavyweight and just kind of rotate through some of the newer faces. And if you're good enough, you can get a second and third act in this business. Next. If you were Derek Lewis, would you change up your game plan going forward? After a great run, he's had a rough stretch. He just lost to he lost to the champ and a former champ. No. Derek Lewis is what, in his mid to early 30s? Like, there's changing up much is not possible at this point. He kind of is who he is. There might be some things he can do to accommodate his back pain or his unique susceptibility to, it appears, to body shots. But no, I would just stick with what got you here. It's you can't learn how to speak Chinese very well in your 30s. You got to learn that when you're very, very young and then build that over time. Next. Do you think the Daniel Cormier versus Brock Lesnar fight will happen? If it doesn't, what is DC's next fight? Jesus, man, I don't know. I don't know what the hell's happening with that. Brock's doing whatever the hell he's doing. DC's still recovering from injury, as he indicated on this show. If it doesn't happen, what is DC's next fight? I would love it to be against John Jones. I wouldn't even mind a Stipe fight, to be honest, but I don't know that it has to be the priority. Next. What's the worst combinations of toppings on pizza you can think of? The worst combo. I don't mind Hawaiian pizza. I don't know that I love it, but I don't mind it. I would say black olives. And I love olives, but the black ones they put on pizza, they're gross. And like sardines, maybe, something like that. Those are pretty bad. Next. Would you like to see Nico Price versus Robbie Lawler? Boy, Nico Price, is he a born finisher or what? Wow. Sure, that'd be a lot of fun. Mix it up. Nico Price, man, he wins in devastating fashion. Remember his hammer fists on Randy Brown and now this, and he's had a number of other finishes that are just violent. He is an incredible finisher. He's built for that. Next. Dan Raphael reported disclosed salaries for PBC Boxing's event, Porter versus Ugas. Porter made $1.25 million, but there were two fighters that made $1K, one that made $5K, and two that made $8K. In the UFC, your very first fight, you are guaranteed $13,500 between your show and gear. Is there a question there? Oh, yeah. In the UFC, you can become a millionaire without even having 15 professional fights. In boxing, 95% of boxers have to have at least 30 fights to hope to make that much. That's overstating it. But is the UFC over-villainized for their pay structure? No. The issue is not that. The issue is the UFC is better about creating a healthier middle class of fighters. But when we talk about who is the most robbed or who is the most underpaid, a lot of people think it's the guys who are making 10 and 10 or 20 and 20. No, it's the guys at the top because they're not getting the maximum amount of what they're probably entitled to were they in a different position. So it's a bit of a change up. It's good to have this middle class. It's not so great to have the ones at the top not really making those big dollars. Next. With Holloway versus Poirier 2 on the horizon, what areas in both guys' game do you believe have improved the most since their first fight? Do you think Holloway's wrestling defense has surpassed Poirier's wrestling offense? And how does Dustin handle Max's striking volume? What a great question. Well, they both improved dramatically. Let me finish this one while we call Mr. Guida. Here's what I would say about this. Definitely for Holloway, his takedown defense has become borderline impenetrable. It's amazing. That has really done a lot for him, both in making guys stall out against him and in being bringing the other parts of his game to life, which is his distance management and his jab, and then his sort of the way in which he adds volume over time. The key there, really, the glue that holds that together is his takedown defense. By contrast, Poirier has really dialed back the brawling. Very, very good defensively, good judge of distance, still has that potent power punching. I don't think he's going to try and really take down Holloway. He might try to mix it up, but for the most part, I think they're going to fight this one at distance. So for me, Poirier's really got to do damage early. Holloway doesn't check a lot of leg kicks either, so that should be something you should watch out for. And how much can Poirier limit the stance switching? Man, there's a lot. All right, let us get to our first guest. I haven't talked to this gentleman in a while. I think the last time I talked to him was when he fought maybe in Fairfax, Virginia. I could be wrong about that. I saw his parents there. They could not have been nicer. Let's recap with him now. The one and only Clay Guida is here. Hi, Clay. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you, Luke?
Good. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you making some time for us. Your parents, I met them at your fight in Fairfax, Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. Are they still coming to all your fights?
Oh, absolutely, man. Their parents come to all the fights. We'll see if we can get them down to Brazil for this one, but they're trying to stay, personality, obviously, but and if they're not there in person, they're always there in my corner, just like you guys are.
Man, they for folks who may not have been there, they had, correct me if I'm wrong, Clay, they had T-shirts, they had signs, flags, the whole 9 yards. I've never seen, well, maybe Tyron Woodley's mother is also kind of like that, but it's pretty rare, man.
Yeah, you know what? They go to drastic measures for all the fights, man. They're my biggest supporters, my biggest fans, and they're my best friends. And so I really love having them nearby, having them front row, and they're always right there in my corner. I can hear them no matter where I'm at in the country, no matter where I'm competing in the world. They're always right there with me.
Hey, Clay, real quick, is your phone on speaker by chance?
No, it's there. Do you want me to put it on speaker?
No. It just sounds a little bit muffled. Not sure what that is exactly, but it's okay. We can roll through it. Just wanted to see.
Is this a little bit better?
Yes, it is. That sounds great.
Right.
Okay, so let's get to it, man. You're taking on BJ Penn. When the UFC called you and said, hey, we want you to fight Mr. Penn, what went through your mind?
Oh, man. First of all, yeah, I mean, all the incredible fights that BJ put on, he paved the way for not just the lightweight division, but pretty much the UFC. You know what I mean? He's done so much for the sport, so much for, so many up-and-coming fighters, and I was just so excited and thrilled that they would ever offer us a fight like that, and I could not turn it down because that's not our style. We accept every fight with open arms, and to compete against a legend like BJ, he's more than just a legend. He's, one of the creators. He's a pioneer, and he's a prodigy for a reason. So we're super excited about this matchup.
Okay, so let's just be honest about this conversation. I know what you're going to get out of it. You beat a guy like BJ Penn. That looks great on your resume, no doubt. And certainly I'm in no position to challenge all the nice things you said about him. But he hasn't won a fight since 2010. Do you really believe in your heart of hearts that this is a guy that should still be competing?
You know what? Someone brought that to my attention the other day. It was a close friend of mine who's a huge fight fan. He's very knowledgeable about the sport. And I couldn't believe it when he said that, it's been 2010 since he won a fight. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to, believe that. It's hard to think that, a guy that was, a former two-time champion, in lightweight and welterweight, hasn't won a fight in, 9+ years. It's pretty incredible. But, having, getting in the cage with someone like BJ Penn, is, it's an opportunity you can't turn down. And, he's the only one, and his camp and his family are the only ones to say, if he should be competing or not. So that's totally up to him. I'm not in a position to say that. So I'm accepting the fight, and we're going to put on a show for the fans.
Do you, when this fight was announced, I was like, ooh, there are some interesting elements here. I saw a lot of people saying, well, this is going to be competitive because Clay's going to go into BJ's guard. Now, we never know how the fight goes, but I actually feel like people are sleeping on your striking here a little bit. You were going toe-to-toe with Brian Ortega for a long time. Obviously, things didn't end up going your way, but you showed a lot of great striking there. Do you think people are forgetting about your striking a little bit?
Yeah, you know what, people, everyone knows we're going to wrestle in every fight. We always get it to the ground, or we try to get it to the ground, whether it's at the beginning of the fight, first round, if it's towards the end of the fight. I would have been well advised to take it to the ground against Ortega, towards the end of the fight. But, came up a little bit short in that one, unfortunately. And our striking game is definitely coming around every single day out here at Team Alpha Male with, my boxing coach, Joey Rodriguez. Our striking coaches, Chris Holdsworth, Danny Castillo, Mike Malott. We're getting much better on the feet every day, and we're always improving our stand-up game. So we're more versatile every camp, every fight. So expect to see, put it on the feet, and definitely, I'm always going to wrestle. That's what we're born and raised to do. So this fight's definitely going to go to the ground, and we're going to definitely have to watch out for a slick guy like, BJ, who's dangerous everywhere. He got tricks up his sleeve, and he's one of the most dangerous fighters. I don't care how old he is. I don't care when the last time he won a fight is. That guy could, slip a submission on you from any time, anywhere, any place.
Yeah, thinking of that, though, what would you say his submission threat is the strongest? Close guard, from finding his way to the back? Where do you think he really is the most dangerous in that consideration?
I definitely think his transitions from, from his guard to taking a guy's back, whether it be, an arm drag or, excuse me, hopping up and, snapping you down, going behind, whatever it may be. He's very versatile down there. And, he's been down there so many times. And, he was the first, the first American, Brazilian world champ or something like that, or, won a Brazilian world title or something down there.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot of tricks, and we'll be expecting everything, but we'll be well prepared for everything he has.
Yeah, he was the first American to win the Mundials, the World Championships, way back when. Yeah, and then he got his black belt in 4 years too.
That's unheard of. Wow.
All right, so the going to Brazil part. Here's what's interesting: are you going to be the hero or the villain down there?
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys. What do you think? I mean, we fought in Brazil before. We fought a Brazilian down there. Didn't go too well for us, but you know what? They were super, super supportive. So I feel like we're definitely going to be welcome down there. I've heard that BJ is training down there, so he's got a huge Brazilian fan base, and he's a favorite wherever he goes. So I expect the crowd to be cheering for both of us, and the crowd can definitely expect an amazing fight, and they know we're going to put it out on the line as always. So I don't know if I'm going to be the favorite or the villain in this one. That's a tough question.
My hunch is that with BJ being who he is in the game and then training in Brazil with some of those guys down there, he's probably going to be the fan favorite, but I guess one never really knows. Let me rewind to his last fight against Ryan Hall. Is there a whole lot to read into that? Like, you and Ryan Hall probably have opposite games.
You know what? It's very, like you said, almost complete opposites. He definitely goes for the takedown, but in a different way. He kind of shoots and, he pulls guard. I'm always, looking, to take top position just because of my wrestling game, my ground and pound, pass the guard, take the guys back. Ryan Hall is just, he's a master, just like BJ Penn is. Their ground game is so next level. But, like I said, once you get on top and you start raining down punches, things, the whole tide of the fight changes real quick. So I hope BJ's leg is okay. I know he's training hard for this fight, and I'm glad, he accepted it. I'm glad he put it out there, and I know it's going to be incredible. So I hope, Ryan's doing well too. I know he's going to have a big fight after coming off a huge submission win over BJ Penn. So I'm definitely interested to see what he has next as well.
What does a win over Penn get you?
It gets us back in the win column. Having, a finish is what we're going for over BJ, obviously, just like every fight. Beating, like I said, not just a legend, he's a Hall of Famer. And, having a win over BJ Penn, like, someone like that is, it puts you in the next echelon. I don't care how old he is. He is he's the creator of the lightweight division, in the early modern day, if you will. You know what I mean? Him and Jens Pulver, they paved the way for us. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for guys like them. So that gets us, relevant again, and it gets us, back into maybe talking about, maybe a top 10 guy.
Your last fight was in June of 2018. Were you out for any injury? Were the right matchups not coming? Like, how come where there was relative inactivity? Only one time you fought in 2018.
Yeah, it was just, there wasn't a whole lot of fights. We've been trying to fight, in the fall, excuse me, after the last one. And, the UFC is so busy now, and there's so many athletes under contract. It's just kind of hard to get fights right now. So we took our time. We waited for, the phone call. And once we got it, we jumped at the opportunity.
Clay, how are things going at Alpha Male? I looked at your Instagram before today's show. You seem to be fitting in right in there. Tell me how it has been since you have made the move.
I've been out here for about 4 years now, and it was a very, very smooth transition. Uriah Faber does a great job, with his facility. I call it the Mecca of MMA. He's got a new facility. It's almost 2 years old now, and it's really a one-stop shop. You got he runs it like a college wrestling program because that's, his pedigree. He's got a wrestling background. all sorts of wrestlers, from Chad Mendez to Cody Garbrandt, Darren Elkins, Andre Feely. The list goes on and on. Lance Palmer. It's just, there's so many top level. Josh Emmett's got a big fight coming up. So, obviously I'm a wrestler, so it's natural for me to, be attracted to a place like this. And, the coaches and, former fighters like Danny Castillo, they really, really run this place. They got it so dialed in, and hopefully they're going to be expanding in the near future. But it really is it's a perfect fit for me. More of a wrestling base, and they know how to utilize my strikes and my takedowns, and get the fight to where we want it. So it's been a perfect fit for me so far in these past few years.
When you moved there, did you inherit any of the Team Alpha Male's got a lot of guys everybody loves, but it's not some secret that they had some beef with TJ Dillashaw. That seems to be mostly behind them at this point. But when you move there, sometimes guys move to a team and they kind of inherit that beef. Did you inherit it in any capacity, or did you just sort of stay away from it one way or the other?
Oh, yeah. I was here before all that beef started. So, TJ's a friend of mine, so I don't get caught up in any of that, any of the drama. Not my place. I asked Uriah about this, but I think he had some family thing going on. What do you make of the ongoing, what do you want to call it, dispute between Justin Buckles and his assessment of what happened with Cody Garbrandt and the gym generally? Do you have any comment about that? Yeah, same here. I stay out of that stuff as well. I just focus on what I have, at task and and my teammates, and that's all I can, excuse me. That's all that I stay focused on, and that I wrap my hands around.
Fair enough. So let me ask you this then. This I think you can speak to. You've been there 4 years. Can you speak to your technical development while you've been there?
Yeah, my game is definitely been improving every single day. It's people saw me coming from Jackson, Winklejohn out to here, and they see the improvement in my stand up. You saw it a little bit in the Ortega fight. You saw it in the Eric Koch fight, Joe Lazan fight. So expect to see it. Unfortunately, we got a little bit rear-ended in the my last fight last June in Chicago, and I'm looking to make good on that fight this next one. So you can definitely see an improvement in my hands, the stand-up game, but always realize that we're a threat on the ground, and we're getting better every single day. So it's definitely been a good fit out here, and I'm looking to get back to the old ways of the carpenter, putting these guys down and ground and pounding them. Well,
you know what? If your parents can't make it all the way to Brazil, I know they're going to have probably the best watch party anybody could ever hope for. So we got to get pictures of that one way or the other. Clay, wish you nothing but the best of luck. You don't need it. UFC 237 on May 11th when you face BJ Penn. And thank you for making some time for us today. We really appreciate it.
The pleasure's all mine. Thank you guys so much. I always appreciate the support. Check out our brand, our supplement brand, MaxUpperMuscle.com. Check us out at Instagram, Clay Guida. Thank you guys so much. And I can't wait to get in there and scrap it up with a legend like BJ Penn. Thank you guys so much at XM Radio, Sirius Satellite.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, see you guys.
Thank you. Very good. You appear to believe we were on a radio show. We are not, but that's okay. All right, let's do this now. We're going to do this in 2 different parts. Time now for the sound off. All right, let's go to my boy Danny Segura, who thinks he's El Tigre on Instagram, just out there posting all his highlights.
I'm out there breaking ankles, son.
All right, we're going to do this in 2 parts. I don't know if we have to play the intro twice, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, we can skip that. We don't need to play the intro twice.
All right, so you heard the calls. You screened them. You got them ready for today's show.
I did.
Tell me about them.
They were pretty good. We got a lot of submissions, a lot of late submissions. I mean, guys, get them in on Sunday night because, Monday mornings at, 10 minutes before the show starts.
A lot of people do that on Mondays, man. I've noticed that. They're like, I left a message at 10 a.m. It's like, probably not going to make the cut. Probably.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to, get all that sorted out last minute. So get them in early and, yeah.
Early bird gets the worm.
Exactly.
All right,
well, let's get started with UFC Wichita.
Okay, let's do it.
What did you think about the Ben Rothwell decision? Do you think he got robbed? Let me know what you think.
You know, I wasn't scoring that in real time.
Yeah.
It looked to me like Ben clearly took the third and definitely did the better damage. I know that Rothwell was cut, and so he was bleeding, but he just seemed to me to be doing the better damage overall. But I've not looked at the stats, and honestly, I didn't really start asking myself who was winning until halfway through the third.
Yeah.
And halfway through the third, Rothwell was chewing him up. I guess I was surprised, but I couldn't go to the mat, Danny, and make a real argument about either guy. What about you?
Yeah, I thought he took the second and third, but I mean the
It was tight.
It was tight, but it wasn't like tight enough for me to be like, oh, you know, I don't know who's gonna get it. I thought going into it, I'm like, oh, Ben Rothwell should get it. But the fact that it went the other way, like, I'm not surprised with the judging.
Like Nate Diaz, you're not surprised?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You know,
there was a couple of strange calls. Marion Renault not even getting one full judge's scorecard. That one surprised me a little bit.
Yeah,
I'll be honest about that.
I started tuning in for the main card, so I didn't get to watch a lot of prelims. I'll catch up on the prelims on.
Yeah, like her losing is not a scandal. It was just that she only won one round on all three judges' scorecards. I found that a little surprising, to be candid with you. But all right, I mean, it is what it is, right?
I guess so.
To borrow from Max Holloway, it is what it is.
That's probably the most used sentence in MMA. That's lingo, I guess.
It goes through phases. For a while there, it was in the mix, you know. Now we're off to it is what it is.
Trending in a good direction.
I guess.
That's also another one.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about judging now.
All right.
Hey, Luke and Danny. This is Alex from Orlando, Florida, calling.
Florida.
On Saturday night, I personally think that the judges made a horrible decision with the Ben Rothwell and Blagoy Ivanov fight, especially since the significant strikes were pretty much even, and Rothwell was doing almost all of the advancing. So I know you touched on this before, Luke, but can you discuss how you feel about judges in MMA today? Any possible solutions to bad decisions and fighters getting robbed by judges? And also, do these judges even have any prior fight experience? Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
I would go out there and say most judges don't have any prior fighting experience, not even any training. That's accurate, right?
Yeah, so here's to your point. Again, these are just numerical totals, so you have to judge for yourself what these mean. Blagoy Ivanov versus Ben Rothwell, 19-9 round one, 29-28 in round two. That round two is dicey, and then Ben really took over in round three, 33-24. These are all landed. Couple of responses. Number one, there is no hope, and I'm not trying to be like weird or rude or difficult about it. Remember, we have entrusted MMA. And I'm actually working on something about this. Danny, MMA has a innovation problem. The major reason is because we have entrusted the government to innovate our rules. That sounds inherently idiotic, but it is exactly what we have done. We did it to preserve the sport's literal ability to stay alive, so it made sense. The problem is we are now in a space where the sport is evolving, and boxing's rules kind of were established over time for a narrower field of combat. They've mostly worked out. We do not have that in MMA. So we have innovation problems two ways. Number one, it's uneven. So Nevada might have instant replay, but they've got the old hand down rule. Or there's another way you can look at it, which is there's simply not enough innovation. And that includes with judging. So here's the issue. You have asked Nevada and California and New Jersey, and in this case, where was this one? Wichita, Kansas. You ever been to Kansas?
Never.
You know what you're missing?
I know what you're going to say.
Nothing. You are missing. They call that
I'd like to go to Kansas.
They call that flyover country for a reason, bro. Okay? In any event, people in Kansas are super bitter right now. I'm sorry. Don't live in Kansas. Anyway, the reality is this. You have entrusted these government entities to innovate their rule set without any other authority mandating it. Dude, this is never going to happen. It's never going to happen. You have a current rule set that is so wide in latitude. Think about this. That you could decide one person won and I can decide another person won. Think about that. If you have a scoring criteria where two people can have two different winners in a contest and your subjective experience about where you sit, what you heard, what you saw, You have no ability to look at any metrics, to go back and double check. You might have a combative background where you didn't fight, but maybe you trained jiu-jitsu, Danny, which I know you did. That might either inherently or not affect your judgment. You have no ability to go back and change a call. So we have instituted, through the mechanism of delivery of scoring and the way in which we interact with the world, this epistemological pipeline that has made it so wide in latitude, it's so open to interpretation. There's almost no such thing as a bad card, almost. Yeah. And then on top of that, the government's in charge of any rules innovation. You are stuck. You are stuck. And also, last thing on this, well, do the judges have any combative experience? I do not care if they do. The role, I'll let you go on this one. The role of judges somewhat overlaps in terms of expertise with the role of fighters, but they're very, very different. And just because you're a good fighter does not mean you are a good judge.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things, like, even like people like us, like that work in media, like I hear the argument all the time, like, do you even train? Like, do you, everybody should fight, in order to report on it. Like, no, that's totally not true. You can totally report on something. You can totally be knowledgeable about something without, having to get in the cage, right? But yeah, in order to fix this, what do you think about having 5 judges? And I don't know how to get into MMA as judging it, but like I would like for it to have like a trial where like you sit somebody down, like somebody knowledgeable, say like John McCarthy. Obviously he's not involved anymore, but you sit a few judges down, you make them watch some fights, and then see how they score those fights,
right?
And then be like, all right, is this and then ask them, why do you think you scored this this way, and then see if if their judging criteria is somewhat accurate,
Right. So I get asked this question all the time. Or, well, Luke, what do you think about open scoring, which Glory, by the way, uses in kickboxing? What do you think about X? What do you think about Y? Here's a very basic answer. We can't know the answer to any of these questions. You might be right, Danny, that 5 judges might be better than 3. I know New Jersey has experimented with what they call silent judges, where they're in the back just watching on a TV. How do those scores differ from the ones who sit cage side? Is there a real experiential difference there? I don't know what kind of results they came to, but I know they tried. But the answer is this. Until we get enough data through direct experimentation, it is impossible to know. It is impossible to know. And I have said this, in areas where the UFC goes to self-regulate, why not experiment?
That's true.
Why not? Nothing is stopping
5
you.
judges, see how it goes.
And they don't. They're the only ones who can do that. Not the only ones, but they're a big driver of potential innovation, and they abdicate their role. And until someone else does, I don't know what to tell you.
Dude, and it sucks because, like, one fight can make a huge difference in your career. Look at Ben Rothwell. He's been out for what, like, since 2016? 3 years almost, right?
Yeah.
He comes back. He has a pretty good performance. He looked good out there. And then,
strong.
Yeah. And then, he gets what I thought it was a bad decision. And then, that can, especially in the heavyweight division, that could lead him a different path.
Yeah.
If he would have gotten a win, maybe, I don't know, fight JDS, I don't know. But like, it would have definitely put him in a good spot. And at that age with the long layoff, like, he needs, every fight counts at this point.
And money. And money.
Yeah. And money too. Yeah. So there's definitely an issue there, and I'm with you. There needs to be some experimentation. That's the only way to figure out what works and what doesn't.
That's exactly correct.
All right. Well, let's talk about the main event with the time that we have.
All right.
We had 2 callers suggest 2 fights, so we'll just share the thoughts on that one fight and then move on to the next.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Here's the first.
Hey, Luke and Danny. This is Andrew from Georgia. Driving through Marietta right now, Luke, just past the square.
Sorry to hear that.
Wanted to talk about the fight night in Kansas. It was excellent. Akalai was a little tired laying on the couch, and then Tim Means and Nico Price got in there, and I was jumping up and down, yelling. I was more fired up than Brian Campbell watching those 3 main fights. It was excellent.
This guy is pure
Georgia. Question is, after Junior Dos Santos win, I want to see him fight Francis. I think him and Ngannou need to fight. It was supposed to happen. Can we please make this fight happen? What do you guys think? I just don't know what else to do with him besides the trilogy with Stipe, and I don't think that's going to happen. So, anyway, have a good day, fellas. Talk to you guys later.
All right. So,
hey there, y'all.
That was a great call.
My coon hound was out there on the porch just yelling at the moon. Okay, I would say I'm all in favor of it. There are some interesting questions about what you do with Blades, Volkov, and Overeem, because they're occupying a space sort of somewhat in the middle there. But I would say if you want to do JDS versus Francis,
I mean, Blades is coming off that loss against Ngannou.
He's got some fight lined up. I'm not sure. Yeah, he is. He's got some fight lined up. I'm not sure exactly who it is.
Yeah.
And Overeem just got announced with some gentleman. I forget his name as well. I don't know what Volkov is up to. But sure. I mean, like in theory, would I want to see JDS versus Francis? Yeah, dude. And here's what I said on Fight Night, and I think it's true. If you go back and you watch how JDS beat Ben Rothwell, he was jabbing to the head, jabbing to the body, lateral movement. He was on his horse the whole time. Bro, he kind of had a gunfight with old Derek, and he won.
Yeah.
Kind of shocking, to be honest with you. I was, for all the talk about him reinventing his style, which I do, not reinventing, but like accommodating it.
Yeah.
Bro, he went out there and just slung the dogs with him. It was awesome to watch.
Yeah, it was sick. And I felt like at first he approached the fight that way, but I feel like at some point during the fight he figured out, man, if I pressure this guy, like, I can hurt him. He landed a few shots and we saw, Derek kind of get wobbled a little bit, not too bad. And then after he landed that body kick, that's when he's like, I felt like in his mind, he's like, okay, I got him. And he had that switch.
Yes.
But yeah, I think JDS definitely, like, this whole time we've been talking about, Stipe, Jones, Cormier, and then Ngannou won, then all of a sudden he's in the conversation. I think you need to plug in JDS right in that conversation. I think whatever plans you have, the UFC has with the heavyweight division, I think he needs to be involved as far as the title, like how you sort this out.
Well, he came into this fight ranked, 8th?
Yeah.
This idea about him being in the title picture, I'm not saying he's too far from it. I'm a little less convinced it's a necessity.
Yeah. Dude, he's on a 3-fight win streak. That's as good as it gets in heavyweight. He just be former title challenger. I don't know.
The thing is, like a fun fight would be Stipe versus JDS, but they already ran that back in Dallas, and Stipe ran through him. So it's like, there's no real cause for a third one. All right, you want to do one more real quick?
Yeah.
And then we'll do part 2 later.
Wait, so okay, yeah, you're right.
Part 2 of the segment.
So let's tackle the other part of JDS's potential fights.
All right.
This call was really creepy, but
that sounds like one of our listeners.
Sean Gray calling from Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah, I was wondering, with the win over Derek Lewis over the weekend, does a JDS Stipe 3 fight as a title eliminator make sense? That way Stipe can get back in the octagon and maybe make a statement. And maybe JDS can cement a new run at the title after that Stipe loss. All right, thanks again, man. Keep up the good work. And Danny, I like your mustache. Nice mustache.
Bro, the ladies and the dudes love you.
To my Chipotle. I'm speaking of the mustache.
Yeah, I'll grow back the mustache as long as you don't ever leave a call like that again.
Dude,
I was sick to that last night.
That made my day. That made my day.
That was creepy. So what do you think?
No, not
a trilogy fight? Because they are 1-1, right?
Yes. JDS won a war the first time, then got smoked the second.
Yep.
No, not really that interested. To me, it's like the second one is probably a lot more indicative of where they are today.
Yeah.
I'm much more interested in like Stipe versus Francis too, to be honest with you. At this point, I think Curtis Blades has a fight lined up, but a Curtis Blades versus Stipe, I'm a little more something fresh, I guess is the answer.
Yeah.
No, I don't have. Again, they may go a different direction, but you're asking me personally where I'm at. I'm looking for something fresh.
Yeah, I'd rather go the Ngannou, right?
And by the way, and I know I said real quick. I know I said look at something fresh, but I also said Francis.
Yeah.
But Francis's resurgence kind of makes it fresh for me, but I could be wrong.
For what? JDS Ngannou?
For Francis and Stipe.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, his resurgence, I feel like there's still questions about that.
There are.
I think he has improved since that fight, but I don't know if we have like a completely different fighter. I'd like to keep those two away from each other at least for a bit.
All right.
I'm down for JDS and Ngannou. Put that fight wherever DC ends up fighting Brock, number one contender or whatever it is, but make it happen.
All right, we gonna do this call with Ralek?
Yeah, let's do it. So we'll do sound off part 2 a little later in the show.
Second hour.
Second
hour, yeah.
I'm gonna go call Ralek.
All right, very good.
See you later.
So this is why we're having Ralek on the show. Obviously, Metamoris ended with a little bit of controversy, more than a little bit. But on Instagram, I saw that they were trying, or it appeared they were trying to get it going again. Now, that is interesting because, as you know, they had let's just sort of lay it out here publicly. They were, years ago, when they did their first show, and even their second show. Well, they did a bunch of shows. And they did 6 shows, and they did like a Challenger series. But those first couple of shows, I think, they didn't invent it, but they really put into motion professional jiu-jitsu events. You have Fight to Win Pro, EBI. You've got Polaris, I think, this coming weekend. By the way, Polaris has a great card on UFC Fight Pass this weekend, and on and on and on. But then they ran into money problems. You had AJ Agazarm taking over their Instagram account, people accusing them of not being paid, not just competitive athletes, but guys who paid for entry into the Challenger services. And when the events got canceled, they never got their money. And a lot of people are kind of upset. I've been looking at some of the comments in the Instagram post, and there are some positivity, but there's a lot of negativity as well. And I want to see what the situation is and what the response is, because it seems like there's an indication, I could be wrong, that they realize that they have a debt that they owe and that they need to pay that before they can move forward. I will say, though, there does appear to be some nostalgia about them based on what I have seen. I just think folks want that wrongdoing put away. So we'll see what they have to say. All right, let's go to him now. I don't know what the truth is, but I want to have him on to see what the situation is. We have him on Skype? Yes, I think we do. Let's go to him now. It's Ralek Gracie. There he is.
Wow, that was quick. How's it going, Luke?
Hi, it's going well. You grew your hair back out.
Yeah, it appears I have.
Well, I was looking up photos today to get the post ready for the interview, and all the recent photos, you had no hair, and there was one of you in a gi, but you had hair, and I was like, well, I don't want to use the old one if this is the new thing, so I didn't pick it, but your hair is back, so there you go.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with my life in the public eye as of late, so I'm not, but yes, the hair seems to just be a natural fit at this point. So yeah. How are you doing? How's everything?
I'm all right. I'm tired. I'm so tired I could cry, but that's a story for a different time. All right, let's get into it. So I saw on Instagram the Metamoris account got going again, and then there was a lot of activity in the comments section. So let's talk about it. Is Metamoris coming back?
Yeah, so that's the goal, and I think people kind of misunderstood a little bit what we were saying, what we were trying to do. The Chapter 2 reference is essentially that with the time that I've had to kind of recuperate from a lot of the emotion and a lot of the stress that we really went through, frankly, in this whole process. Of trying to kind of keep things afloat and keep things going despite a lot of financial stress, but being able to take that time off and look back and look, in the moment at what we really have. It's been, the thing that's been coming up is that, there's a life for Metamoris that, is way longer than, what I guess I even anticipated initially. And, Chapter 2 is a reference to the fact that, we've learned a lot. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've, gone through things that we couldn't even anticipate. And, we're aware of the fact that that's essentially a first chapter in a book that, could go 10, 20 chapters or longer, so the focus for us is to just acknowledge and help people realize that, we have every intention of doing the best that we can. And, for me, Luke, I'm in a place where I have the ability to just wipe my hands and, file bankruptcy. And I live in a different state. Actually, I'm in Colorado, and I'm enjoying it. And life is beautiful, and I'm physically and mentally, I feel really healthy, and so I'm in a place where I could just walk away. And again, I'm coming back to the idea that, it doesn't make sense, and it never really did make sense for it to end at that point. And so it's just becoming more apparent to me that there's still life, there's still energy. We're getting, we in the last year, we've had 11 million viewership hours on our YouTube channel, and we haven't done anything. We haven't even posted a video in the last year. So it's been incredible to see that there's still this pulse, there's still this energy, with the content that we've created. And then I look at the industry and I look at, the culture and what's happening and the people that we've inspired. And I can see that a lot of the organizations that we've inspired are still not pushing the industry to the level that we were pushing from the very beginning, in some ways very frivolously, and in other ways, very, very on point in terms of our ability to really push the boundaries of jiu-jitsu, and drive the interest that I think is really necessary for us to, help the game evolve. And I look at a lot of other sports that, could be less boring than submission grappling, but they have this established franchise and they have this established culture that is feeding the athletes and is creating a really strong, presence, whether it be in the market or just culturally for people who are excited to participate. So I think, for me, like as a human, I wouldn't embark on this. I wouldn't continue to do this despite all the ridicule if I didn't feel a deep, I actually feel like it's necessary. I feel like this is not happening. No one is doing this. So who's actually going to do it if no one is taking that responsibility? If we have a bunch of leagues that are going to play it safe and not really build the culture and take those risks that are necessary to really leaps and bounds grow the industry and to calculate everything that's necessary and, process the data that comes in real time and have the guts to kind of deal with anything that can come up. And, that's something that I've always felt inclined to do. And even now, it's been like 4 or 5 years since an event happened, it's still something that we're very much I'm excited about. And I look at it and I'm like, man, this is
let me stop you there because let me stop you there because I want to get to all of that. I want to make sure you have your say, but I got 1,000 questions. So let me start getting to some of this. I went through that. I watched, I think, virtually every Metamoris, including some of the Challenger stuff. When you say that you guys set the tone for all of this, I think you're right. I think you did. I think Metamoris does not get the credit it deserves for pushing the market to where it is. However, let's start with some of the things that happened before we talk about what's yet to come. You mentioned some of those mistakes. It's not a secret that you guys ran into financial difficulties. In fact, you'd mentioned it, I think, on one of the Instagram comments that you guys had run into it, that your investor had pulled out either before or after the second event. So let's get to it. Is Metamoris in debt? And if so, what are the plans to make sure that everyone who has not been paid gets their money?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Yeah, so we are, the company is in debt, and the plan, to be honest, is there's kind of a two-phase plan or a double kind of plan, if you will, or two sides to the plan. The first side is we need a financial partner and we need a business partner who has the experience and the fortitude and the qualities necessary to help us grow a company from $1 million to $15-20 million. Someone who has that experience, and that could be on the operations side, and it could also be like business development operations. But then you also have a financial partner who's actually invested, who cares, who's passionate about jiu-jitsu, who's willing to actually put the money necessary to really take something from where it is now to what it really can be and what I believe it can be. Which is not an easy path, and which, like any endeavor, requires the right amount of fuel to get it there with that vision. As long as that vision is actually there and is shared by those people collectively. So I've been looking for the right partner for a long time. I still, to this day, don't have the right financial partner, and I don't have the right operations partner. So that's a big piece, right? Another big part of it is being able to actually work with the athletes and say, look, what can we give you and what can we do to make this move forward without us being in a place where we're completely out, and that, we want to work with you and we're willing to take the steps necessary to pay you off whether that be a first payment, whatever it may be, and moving towards that process of saying, look, you're on the inner circle, you're on the inside of this in a way that a lot of these athletes won't be. And we understand what you went through, but ultimately, as a general rule, we're here and we're not going anywhere. And we want you to know that, like, yeah, this wasn't something that we did on purpose, but at the same time, we understand there was a mistake made, and we understand that you're the only way forward for us. So it's a dialogue. It's actually getting into the nitty gritty and working it out. And for some people that may be, hey, I need my money right now. Great. And to be frank, a lot of the people that really have made any noise and who have kind of went out against us online are people that are owed a lot less money, and the people who are owed more money have, in some ways been very supportive and been aware of what we've been going through and have been very patient and known that I never really had the intention of, doing that, which of course, intentions can be dangerous and all that. We've heard it, but they know me and I've had dialogue and I've been in communication with these athletes. So, and there are very specific athletes who haven't wanted us to succeed from the very beginning. And so, for them, like, for example, AJ, we owe him $1,000.
Talk about AJ Agazarm, right?
AJ Agazarm, yes. Yeah. And so we owe him $1,000, and he goes out and says, basically, don't support this event on Metamoris 7, live streams it from his phone to siphon revenue from us so that we cannot continue to do business and pay athletes in real time live on the show when we owe him $1,000. So if you look at his motive for trying to trash our brand and take over our Instagram and tell us that he's not going to help us until we pay back the athletes like he's some superhero, and when really he's owed $1,000, and you know what I mean? Like, this is a much bigger engine. And yes, I'm sorry, it's unfortunate that he was caught up in it. And yeah, he's not any less, owed, or it's not necessarily like the amount of money is really the main problem, or even the main, I guess, indication of a level of disrespect or loss. But the point is there are people with different intentions who have. And for AJ, I think his intention was to grow his own brand and to develop himself rather than look at it. And literally like a week before he took over our Instagram, I had talked to him and said, hey, man, this is the situation. We're doing what we can. And even though we owe you this amount of money, I was treating him the same as anybody else that we were in that situation with.
But here's the thing, Ralek. Here's the thing. It's I don't know your motivations. And to me, it sounds like your motivations, you have a vision for jiu-jitsu that you want to exact. And so I believe that. But if you don't pay AJ Agazarm $1,000 and whoever else, and a show continues, I'm not suggesting this is what you were trying to do, but it feels like fraud.
No,
man.
That's not what we were trying to do. No,
but it feels like fraud to some of these guys, and you can understand why they would have hard feelings. I'm not mad at a competitor for not getting paid. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And so for example, I didn't get paid for fighting Sakuraba in Japan. I didn't get paid. And that was a lot of money.
I can believe it.
Of course, and it could be for anybody, right? It's all relative, but it was $70,000. So I didn't get paid to fight Sakuraba. And it was devastating for me financially because I went in like a year into like developing my training and like but anyways, I never heard another word from them. Like, they cut me off and it was like, that's it. They did another show. I never heard nobody from their executive team called me and said, hey, look, we care about you. This is what we're doing. This is the plan we have. Like, I didn't even get a word. So that's one level. And then another level is if they came back right now and said, hey, look, we're trying to do this and we see you, like, we care, and like we dropped the ball, and there was things that you'll never understand that financially we went through, which now I understand as an event promoter and as somebody in show business, what can happen. And so now I can see that they could come back and say, hey, look, essentially, this is what we want to do. We want to give you 25% of your money, whatever it is. And we want to work towards something that can happen. Great. Like, that's a different kind of relationship as opposed to, hey, we took something from you, forget you, and now we're going to go try to do something in Japan and hide from you and act like we don't even, that you don't even exist. That's not the case. So yeah, I understand. We put out
that.
Put out
Halleck, if I may, the nobility of your intentions, whatever they may be, does that really cover for financial mismanagement?
No, it doesn't. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, like, yeah, you have to, and this is what I've been talking to my wife about a lot. And like, yes, we have to we have to put in the right amount of effort, and we have to put the right people in place. And you can't allow these things to happen. So yes, there's no doubt that I let down the jiu-jitsu community, and I created a monster that I couldn't control. And it was a lot of my own inability to grow a company and not have that experience. And like, there was a lot of energy for growth, and there was a lot of potential that I just couldn't manage. And and like, where I come from, like with my dad's influence, he ran the Gracie Academy for many, many years, and we grew up with that, right? And that's a specific type of like service business where, you know, your whole life kind of goes into that daily grind, and you have to be willing to kind of do whatever it takes. And you grab the mop, you grab the broom, you fold the towels, you teach the class, you do everything, right? And so we come from this idea that like, and I have a lot of that in my dad, where like, you do everything and you're part of everything. And like, I completely burn myself out, and I completely let a lot of people down by just thinking that I was being noble by participating in so many parts of the business that really I had no business doing, you know. And it wasn't, looking back, it's extremely irresponsible, and it doesn't really give honor to the whole, the thing as a whole. And so, yeah, that's now looking back, right, and seeing in hindsight as a human, like, I have to grow, I have to learn, like, where was my real error? And, you know, it's easy for people to say, oh, well, your error is the entirety of it, when really, like, there was additional aspects of this, Luke, that like I had advisors, right? And I had people who were very smart, who run other businesses and who are really high level executives, who could only give me a certain level of advice, because we were participating and we were moving on something that was so unique, you know, and had no real reference, you know, like, it didn't have any reference at that time. And when you go from getting a certain number of pay-per-views to getting another number of, we do 2 shows, we have 2 data sets for events, right? And then we say, okay, well, we're going to do a 3rd show. We have to be able to, and when we lose our investor after the 2nd show, well, how do we do this 3rd show that we already had Hoyler and Eddie Bravo signed to, and we already had made deposits for, which took like a whole year to process. But like, how do we make this 3rd show happen and actually make it happen and do it off of this like gut instinct, which we knew that what was correct, but we still needed to like present it in a certain way that people expected, because we have this certain level of brand and quality and energy and momentum. So like, really developing that off of a data set of 2 events with pay-per-view streams that are, and those 2 events are completely different, right? So you have like Hadra and Buchecha competing, and then you have Crone and Aoki, and then you have like, you know, so we had like price differences, and we had like all these things that kind of made everything a different variable in many ways, and made it a more complicated data set. And so meanwhile, we're just like, all right, we're becoming the data set in real time. So for us to be able to process that and say, okay, how do you approach this in real life when these guys have already been promised this amount of money? We've already made deposits. We have to make this event happen. And, you know, Metamoris 3 was like, we barely made money on that event. You know, like we didn't pocket money on that event. So, and that was like the biggest event in jiu-jitsu of all time. But like, so then the stress is like, all right, now we have Metamoris 4. What do we do? You know, and Chael Sonnen versus Andre Galvão is a huge, powerful event, because Chael Sonnen was as controversial as he was, and he was losing the ability to be in the event because there was that whole mess about him testing positive, and they wanted to cut him out of the grappling event, and people weren't even sure if he was going to make it. All of that drama helped and boosted sales. And so, and it actually helped us break even again. So like, that show was just as did just as many almost numbers. It did almost just as much as Hoyler and Eddie Bravo because of all the drama. But then we're like, oh shit. So there's just, it's such a wild ride. Like it was such a wild ride. And there were so many like numbers and there were so many like things that were happening under the surface that we couldn't even anticipate. And like really what I needed to do was step back and hire and raise like $5 million and hire like 3 top tier executives and be like, look, your job is to fucking make this work and crunch all the numbers, run, you focus on athletes 100%. And, I'm basically just going to smile and wave and, and reach out to specific athletes at different times. And that's it.
All right.
And
so Ralek, I got 10 minutes with you left. I want to make sure we use this as productive as possible because I want to make sure we get to your vision for the future. Last question.
Lead the way, sir.
Lead
the way.
Thank you very much. The last question about your past. When I look back and I ask my other friends in jiu-jitsu about Metamoris, I get 2 responses. Wow, they love the shows, all the highlights you're talking about, including that Eddie Bravo-Hoyler rematch, one of the all-time greats. On the other hand, it does seem to me there's just some brand damage baked in at this point. Why resurrect that name for all the good that there's associated with it? And I acknowledge it's real. There's a lot of bad, Ralek. There's a lot of bad. Why not just change the name and do something else?
Good question. Yeah. So for me, where I'm at in my life, again, like I said, I can just walk away from it. And the reason I won't is, and the reason at this point I'm still feeling into it is it's chi, it's karma. And so I believe personally that there is a certain amount of energy, and whether you call it good or bad, it's energy, right? And there's passion. And the fact that there are people who have been wronged and there is energy that could be ill towards the brand or towards me personally is meaningful and is something that ultimately, if I have the ability to right those wrongs, if I have the ability to step into it and say, hey, here's your money. After 5 years, here's your money, for them to go, oh, wow, okay, man, all right. I'm not necessarily like super excited, but I'm no longer holding on to something that I was holding on to in the same way with you. And I think that chi and that release and that movement is something that could ultimately be stronger than starting a new brand. And, for me personally, I don't have any interest in just starting it's not a business decision. It's not like I need to make money off of this and that's my only objective. And I'm going to just hide out and do another brand and pretend I'm not a part of it and let this one dissolve and pretend like nobody ever got paid and it's all good. Like for me, there's nowhere to go. And the objective is the same, which is to make the impact that I feel is necessary, that is not being, portrayed within the industry.
All right. So let's move to your vision for the future. You had noted on Instagram, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe what I read was that you had called the EBI rule set a little gimmicky. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other about the EBI rule set other than, no, I don't have a strong opinion. I don't. But, okay, what is it you want to do that's missing in the current marketplace?
Yeah, so there's a huge gap in the quality of content that is actually educating and expressing the nuances and the beauty and the power of jiu-jitsu. There's a huge gap in the amateur to professional development stage for all athletes and for future athletes. I can go into a lot of details, but there's huge gaps in all structures, all development. And a big part of the future of Metamoris is to really engage a lot of the newer leagues and a lot of the newer brands that have been really trying to push. But if they're not connected to something bigger, and we're not all connected to something bigger, there's not really an adequate funnel. There's not really an adequate opportunity chain for people who really want to make a life out of jiu-jitsu. So the goal is make a life for the kid who loves jiu-jitsu in Alabama or in Australia, to make a life out of jiu-jitsu, and thinking through that entire process and making it possible. And then there's the idea of just the actual live event. And it's always something that I geeked out on, and like till this day, I have people who are like, Ralek, Metamoris 3 or Metamoris 4, or like being at this event was it was the best sporting event I've ever been to in my life. Like, and I'm like, what does that mean? You know, so I think there's like something that we did with the actual experience that gives more reverence and brings more excitement. And then you talk about like that, you know, going out and kind of, you know, in impacting the way that people feel towards jiu-jitsu, the way people want to compete, the way people are excited to compete, you know. And so there's kind of those aspects mainly.
So are you looking to get some clarity? Are you looking to do events?
Yeah, we want to do events. We want to build.
But it sounds like more than that too.
Oh, it's absolutely more than that. It's content, it's events, it's the structure of the amateur development process and competition process. It's the schools, it's the teaching, it's the development of it, it's everything, you know. And like Hickson and like Henner and like my brother, we all have this in our blood, and we have an energy where like through generations, we have an energy and a synergy for bringing to light this experience of what jiu-jitsu can do and what it means. And, you know, and I don't think I'm exempt from that. You know, I think that's just part of my blood, and it's just part of what I'm going for, whether I like it or not.
All right. But the plan is first to, it sounds like, I hope, right the wrongs. Because there is no, I mean, no one would know more than you. There is no forward without figuring out all of that damage that's been done.
Absolutely. And people like, I mean, I guess I missed something, or I didn't explain something well enough. Like, I don't think we can do another event unless we're good with all the athletes. Like, it just doesn't even, you know what I mean? So we're at a point where all I'm saying is, I see you. I don't need to hide. Like, the brand doesn't need to hide, and we haven't filed. So like, we're still here, and we still know that there is energy there, and we still feel obligated. And this is not something that I can just like, this is in my blood. So I'm not just some businessman who's like gonna flip and move on to something. Like, I can't do that. That's not my process. So for me, jiu-jitsu is life. So forever, I'm part of this, and I feel that there is chi, and I feel like we did something amazing for the culture that no one still to this day has done. So I'm not like in some illusional space about what I think I can do. I know what has been done, and I know we just barely got started, and that's what I'm feeling. And so I'm aware of the fact that we need very key people who are high-level people who care about jiu-jitsu to say, look, I'm willing to give my time to this 100%. And we need money, you know, we need the financing, we need the resources, and we need, you know, the support of the community. But I'm not expecting people to just be like, oh, we love you and it's cool, and forget everything you did. No, we'll see what we do. See that we take care of these athletes. See that we're willing to, you know, do the necessary steps to learn from our mistakes and right the wrongs, of course. But also know that, and I'm hearing this from advisors who are smart people that I have in my network. I'm one of the most qualified people at this point to do this kind of business because of what I've been through. I'm extremely qualified. I have made more of the mistakes than a lot of people have made in terms of going through this process. I have data sets now that are more consistent, that are more revealing than they ever have been. So, and I don't take that lightly, and I don't think like, oh, I just know everything now. Not at all. I actually feel like I know less. I've been extremely humbled by this process. And, you know, that's it, right? If we're not learning and growing, we're wasting our time. So, yeah.
All right. Well, Ralek, I know it's a big challenge. I appreciate your candor. I could talk to you for another hour, but we just got limited air time. So we'll have to call it a day there.
Let's do it again, because I know you have more questions. So let's do it again whenever it's good for you.
Yeah, we will. Ralek, I appreciate your candor and your time today. Thank you.
Thanks.
There he goes. Ralek Gracie. All right. Let's go to our last guest of the day. But no, I got a couple more. What am I saying? I've got several more. I'm an idiot. You know what? I want to make sure this guy's doing okay. I heard, I saw what happened in his last fight, and I heard about something. I wanted to check in on him. So let's go to him now. Fresh face of the UFC, Mickey Gall is here. Hi, Mickey. How are you?
I'm good, man. What's up, Big Luke Thomas?
I'm all right, Mickey. Mickey, let me tell you why we're having this interview. Well, one, I always like checking in with you because you have interesting things to say. But two, I got a tip about you. I heard that you were really, really, really sick after the fight and both before the fight, and that you've been in the hospital this whole time. Is that true?
Yeah, I just got out yesterday. I'm still in Vegas, at a Vegas hotel now. But yeah, that was my first hospital stay. I had my kidneys were failing. I honestly, before the fight, I didn't really know. But I could feel like, well, once, I guess like looking back, you could tell a couple warning signs like something was going on, but it wasn't like I went, like I didn't even go to the fight being like, fuck it, whatever, it's just kidneys. Like I really didn't know. But then when I got into the fight, I was like zapped right away.
Yeah.
Like, I was zapped. I rewatched the fight. I'm like in slow motion. I remember like struggling for like balance, like just trying to like stay like on my feet. It's like it was crazy.
Yeah, I was.
I'm
sorry. I was just gonna say I was watching it, Mickey, and I couldn't believe it. Like you were so. And I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm just trying to be honest. You looked so lethargic in that fight.
Dude, yeah, I was like slow motion. It was weird, man. Like when I walked out to the cage, like I thought I was like fine. Like I felt like some pains and stuff like little like almost like phantom like feelings, but like nothing where I was like, can you do, like I had no question. I walked to the cage believing wholeheartedly I was about to go smash Diego Sanchez, but it was like kind of like going to my warship. Like my guns were strong. My ship, I was good. I had good maneuvers. My ship, but I had holes in the bottom of the boat I didn't even know about. And I get out there and I'm trying to fight. And I like just taking like steps. Like you can see like even I usually bounce. Like when I'm just like kind of just trying to keep balance, just standing there. It sucked. It was like it was terrible pain. I remember like what the fuck? Like I trained super hard, do my conditioning, do everything, make sure nothing like that would ever happen.
So hold on. So here's what sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but here's what I was told, just so we can let the listeners know. I was told, correct me if I'm wrong, that it was not a weight cut issue, that what you actually had was rhabdomyolysis, which a lot of CrossFit athletes get. It's essentially this process where the body turns on itself from overtraining, and you can get blood poisoning and all manner of different things. What did the doctors tell you had? Yeah,
I did have rhabdo. But they also think it was kind of like a perfect storm of like drops in the bucket that made this happen. Like I was like my stomach was a little off for like fight week. Like I had like some diarrhea when I'm supposed to be like cutting weight. And then I did the weight cut, and this weight cut was way easier than my last one. Like I believe like sometimes you just got to put the pain in and like get through the weight cut. But this one, it wasn't really necessary. I was, singing, having a good time, got the weight off. But at one point when I stood up, I like passed out. Which I didn't think, at the time I was like, I don't know, sometimes people pass out, I guess. Like I really didn't think I was, it felt like I, got up to, it was easy to write it off. Like everything that, all like the warning signs, I was like, my stomach and like back, like my kidneys, you don't know what a kidney feeling weird really is like. It's like, I don't know, my back feels a little weird. Maybe it's because I ate a lot of pasta, trying to fuel up. I was like, I passed out. That's just because, I got up too fast. I was a little lightheaded, whatever. But yeah, rhabdo sucks. Like my past week, like from Saturday night to like Tuesday, I was in terrible pain. It's like it feels like food poisoning on your stomach and on your back, and like probably just like a little worse, like just constant, just aching, cramping, sharp pains.
Now, if you were mentally committed to the fight, but you knew you weren't feeling 100%, was there ever a point where you were like, I don't know if this was worth it before the fight?
Honestly, in hindsight, yeah, maybe I would have said some of the doctors at least like tried to get my levels a little better. But like hindsight's 20/20. But at the point, I was like, here it is. We're there. It's I guess like the excitement, like making the weight and then like the adrenaline of fight day. I didn't know anything was wrong. I didn't know for sure that anything was wrong. You know, I didn't. It wasn't like I said, the warning signs weren't glaring. It was kind of like under. Yeah.
So you're out of the hospital, which is great. What is the recovery like after the hospital? And I guess my two-part question would be, number one, that, but two, are you now, like, for example, if you get heat exhaustion one time, you're susceptible to heat exhaustion much more readily in future times. So are you more susceptible to now kidney or other kinds of ailments as a function of what happened to you?
No. So that was one of the things I was big with, like asking the doctors, like going forward, or is there any long-term damage? Is there any? There's no problems. What I need to do is I just would need to just monitor with like a doctor. Like I have to go see a physician, see like a nephrologist, just to make sure during like training camps when I'm going really hard that my levels are all good.
Okay. Now, rhabdomyolysis, when the CrossFit getters or CrossFit athletes get it, they get it because they're doing way too much. Junior Dos Santos had it for a time as well, I believe, in one of his cane fights, and he performed poorly as a consequence. So there's some precedent for this. Did your training this time, was it really different than previous times where you had ramped it up, or how different was it?
No, it wasn't. I would say this is the least overtraining I probably did in the camp. I'm a notorious overtrainer. In the past I've gone, probably too hard, but now I've really, I've taken to, trying to be like a professional and making sure I get the proper rest and all that stuff. So like I said, it was a real surprise. It was crazy, man. I remember no idea. I really had no idea. And it wasn't like, the UFC, they have all the medicals, everyone checking you. We all, no idea. That was fine. They do a good job of trying to, make sure everyone's healthy and doing all right. It was under the surface, It was hard to, but it really, shit, it got exposed in the fight. Came out.
That is crazy. So okay, yes, you can get regular checkups, but from a training standpoint, do you have to switch things up? I don't mean leave camps. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm talking about the load or the way you periodize it. What has to change, if anything?
I just think I just need to just pay attention to my kidney function, just to do blood tests and make sure my levels are all proper going forward. I really don't think it's going to be a big have that big of an impact. I think its impact has been had for the most part. I had a shitty fight that I should have won. Fight that was mine. I just needed to show up, and I didn't show up in the condition that I intended to.
Is the UFC aware of your condition? Well, they must be now, but
yeah, they're really cool. They were stopping by the hospital. Dana White came through. Everyone's been great.
Okay, so that they sound like they were supportive. Do you have to go on any medication as a consequence of this?
I do not. No.
All right, that's something as well.
Yeah.
The kidneys. You had mentioned some other biological signs heading into the fight that were a little bit alarming. But aside from kidney pain, was there any other kidney indication heading into the fight?
Yeah, I'd say, like I said, the warning signals that I was able to write off after weigh-ins, I'd be happy to share. I'd like people to learn from at least maybe my mistakes or whatever. So I definitely felt almost like vibrations, almost like someone's playing an instrument on my in my own, kind of on my back, in my low back, kind of. Where I thought it was I'm just maybe whatever, just I don't know. It was kind of I kind of felt that almost like a little phantom tickle kind of, and then so I think another one of the things I felt almost like I had to. I was having trouble digesting, but I think that was me just feeling my kidneys kind of hurt, but thinking of my body trying to process, like I said, the pasta and the stuff I was eating. So that's pay attention if you're low, if like your lower back's feeling like super weird. And then the other thing was I think that the doctor said was bad was I after being depleted and like down in weight, to help myself get back up in weight, just like I did last time, take like a creatine, like a good amount of creatine, like more than normal. And but apparently, if you're like maybe not do that, because that's one of the things. Like I have a really good team around me, and I stand by them. But we might have had a tactical error or something. It was that this creatine could have like pushed it over the edge a little bit.
How many milligrams were you taking a day?
We did like 15 after the like throughout the day of the weigh after the weigh-in.
Oof, that is a lot.
Yeah, but not really. Like when people load up, they do more than that. I think it's a lot for for a dehydrated body. And then when I took like a nap, and it was when my back was like soaked to bed like 2 times. So like I kept sweating. Like I don't know. I think it was just off, man. It was just off. But
correct me if I'm
yeah, go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the daily intake for creatine 5 and then loading is 10 milligrams?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I thought 15 was a lot. But I guess if there's other conditions in play.
Yeah, and I'm drinking like gallons of water. I figured it was all right, but that's something I'm definitely gonna have to examine.
So how was the hospital stay? Like, without getting too graphic, how was the treatment? You just had to rest? Did they have to? What did they have to do?
Well, shit, man. I'll tell you. Saturday. So I stuck around and watched the fights in the back room, and like I couldn't get comfortable. Like this is like after the fight. I was like pissed. Like, what the fuck? How do you gas out, Mickey? Like that's crazy. Like I even remember in the fight, like grabbing like kind of Diego, like put him on the wall and saying to myself, like in my head, to be like, what is going on with you? What do you do? Like, let's go, Mickey Gall. Like, what's going on? Like, I thought I was just gassing, and that doesn't happen to me. Like I said, I train. It's my, I obsess on coming in there in top form. But so after the fight, I'm chilling out there in the back, like kind of down, like what the fuck. But I also I wasn't as depressed because like I knew my body straight up shut down. So it wasn't like I left anything. I couldn't. So I'm lying back there, whatever. I keep derailing. I'm lying in the back. I'm feeling like I can't get comfortable. I have like the pain in my stomach and my back, pain in the stomach and my back. I try to eat a little bit. I throw it up. Pain in the stomach in my back, pain in my back. Fights end. I'm like, yeah, there's something wrong. I think I gotta go to they're gonna send me to the hospital. There's something wrong going on. Might as well just check it out. So I get in there, and then they give you this contrast that like is supposed to help. So they do like a CAT scan to like see all your insides, make sure everything's good. And this contrast will like fucks you up even worse. So for the next like 3 days, it was like I said, like food poisoning to my front and my back, constantly. Just like, oh man, it was terrible. I barely like kind of remember that. They had me morphined up and stuff those days. But then Wednesday came around, I was feeling a little better. And it was kind of so good. Hospital stays aren't so bad.
Wow, that sounds like a crazy ordeal. You have a pretty good attitude about it in the end, I guess.
Yeah, man. It's not bad, and I'm fine. I'm lucky. Everything's fine. I still I love this life. I'm really, really pissed and disappointed the way the fight went, but I couldn't represent all my skills, but I'm grateful for this. I'm gonna get an opportunity to do it again soon, and I love this fucking game. I love this shit.
So, do you want another crack at Diego, or because even if it wasn't really you got you got stopped. So, do you want another chance at him, or do you want to move on to something else?
I'd love it if he wanted to do it again, but I'd be surprised if he it's not gonna I'd be surprised if he wanted to re-up that. I expect to be fighting a new opponent. It doesn't matter. Anyone 70 pounders, I'll show what I can do.
When is it safe to get back in there?
I'll probably take like another like week or two off, and I'll be back training.
You're a savage, Mickey Gall. You're a savage.
Thanks,
I'd be taking months off, man. But that's why I don't do what you do. So,
I guess so.
well, look, man, I am really sorry to hear you had to go through that. It did look weird watching it. I just didn't know if you were. I thought you were injured, like you had turned an ankle and you couldn't do road work, and that's why you didn't have much gas. I didn't know what it was, to be honest with you.
No, I worked real hard on the gas. Because I knew Diego. He's like a stamina guy. All that. I just had some failing kidneys, bro.
All right. Well, look, Mickey, get rest, get healthy again. It sounds like you're on the mend and on the better side of things. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your candor, and I look for a rejuvenated Mickey Gall next time you're out there. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Luke. Thanks for giving me the space to talk.
Of course. My pleasure's all mine. There he goes, Mickey Gall. All right, man. That is crazy. That is crazy, man. I'm like a little bit speechless by some of those details. All right, let's do this. It is time now. I usually do it in the first hour. Let's do it in the second hour. It is time now for the Monday Morning Analyst. Do this here for a second. Okay, boys and girls. I had teased on Twitter yesterday that I wanted today's Monday Morning Analyst to be special, and I'm hoping that it is. Okay, I want to make a deal with you. Okay, this is what I'd like to do today. Promise not to scream. I promise not to yell. I promise not to shout. I promise not to be completely disparaging of people who don't share my opinion, because I really, really want, if I can't even convince you, which I probably cannot because convincing people takes time. You can't really do it in one setting. I at least want to move the conversation in the right direction. So I'm going to make a deal with you. Let me present my arguments and then take the evidence that I am presenting to you and please, please, please review it. One of the reasons why I believe my argument that I'm about to present to you is strong, and I'm going to have all the timestamps for you to go and look through from all the fights that we are going to take a look at here, is because I believe it's on the side of the case that I am presenting. I'm not hiding the evidence. I'm not telling you what's not out there. I'm going to tell you specifically where it is, and I'm going to ask you to take into consideration my viewpoints, but of course, in the end, make up your own. As always, the standard disclaimer, I'm not presenting this to you as the best analysis or the only analysis. I'm presenting this to you as my analysis. I encourage you to think about it in your own terms and seek out what other analysts might have to say and draw a determination from there. Okay, so what is the theme of today's MM Analyst? I'm not going to relitigate it, but I put out a video on my personal YouTube channel trying to exonerate Mark Goddard. Because while everyone basically agrees that his way of saying to Kamaru Usman, it's a fight, was totally inappropriate, and he has since apologized for that, I noticed, which is why I had that preamble at the beginning, not a lot of people who were disagreeing were looking at the clear evidence I was showing them, or they were bringing up other fights that they thought challenged the viewpoint that I was trying to make. That's one. We're going to take a look at those fights, okay? The very ones people brought up. Number two, this is really a broader debate. The broader debate is as follows. What is the proper role for a referee and a referee intervention in the middle of a professional mixed martial arts contest, I should say. What am I saying? Contest. Some people make the argument that they should never be involved but for stopping a fight when someone gets viciously KO'd. There should be no separations, no stand-ups. Some people believe that there should be heavy-handed intervention. I think I'm somewhere in between. But I think either position, where there's constant stand-ups and constant breaks, or all stand-ups should be earned, here is what I'm trying to get across to you. Those are either antiquated or extreme positions. They're not really representative of the modern reality that MMA lives in. I was talking with Danny earlier in the show that MMA has an innovation problem. 2 ways. One, it's uneven across states, not in big ways, but in minute ways that can be hard to track and follow and can have an effect on the contest. And then 2, there's simply not enough of the right kinds. We don't have enough innovation around what I would believe is the proper role of a referee inside of a mixed martial arts contest. So let me put up the first slide if we can. If you can't read this, don't worry, I'm going to get to you, or we're going to get to it. There's actually 2 slides to referee intervention. We need to have this conversation, otherwise we can't move forward. And I believe that people just have not considered these ideas fully, and I would like to try and make an argument about them. Let us make the argument about stalling and stalemates. No, you don't have to go to the slide, people in the back. Just leave it on me. There you go. I know it's easier to read, but these are all going to be up for people to see. Stalling and stalemates are not the same thing. Stalling is a willful disengagement from activity, right? And there's going to be a lot of reasons for that. A stalemate can look like stalling, but it could just be 2 people who are in a position where we're not making a judgment about their pursuit of the fight. We're just saying that they just couldn't get going from there. They can look similar. They're not the same thing, although there is a little bit of overlap. Okay? Here is where I want to start with everyone today. In order to have a conversation about this, we have to acknowledge what I would believe are some basic facts. Number 1, stalling and stalemates are a problem in combat sports. You need to say it out loud. Jiu-Jitsu and the IBJJF acknowledge stalling as a problem, and they do very little about it. Okay, if you come up from 50-50, you get an advantage for a 50-50 sweep or something, or whatever. But I've seen guys flee the mat. I've seen them do all kinds of things. They do very little to enforce it. By contrast, amateur wrestling, boy, they are on that whistle constantly. Constantly, they are on that whistle. Stalling is a huge thing that they regulate. They'll count shots. This green wrestler has 2 shots. Red wrestler has 10. This guy is stalling or whatever. There's all different mechanisms. If you flee the mat, they call it. They'll raise their hand. Like, dude, they are on top of it. And it's controversial even inside wrestling. But what it does have is an impact. It forces activity all the time. You cannot tell me that you have 2 composite sports in jiu-jitsu and MMA, among others, and judo, by the way. Judo, if you have 2 grips on the same side and you hold it for 5 seconds, penalty. If you hold someone's belt for 5 seconds without attempting a throw, penalty. If you block their hip and stick your ass out, penalty. Dude, they create all kinds of mechanisms to force activity. Dude, it's a problem. It's a real problem. It's a serious problem. You have to acknowledge that's real. If you're going to take components of those sports and bring them to MMA, it is only natural you are going to end up in a position where that is a problem. Number 2, there is no such thing as a real fight. Part of what people say is, I want to make sure that we don't really, I don't want to interfere with the circumstances. Well, no, you don't want the referee such a player in the middle of 2 combatants that referee has an outsized role. And how you figure that out, there's a debate to be had. But this is not a purity test. This is not what we're doing. People are like, well, it's more real if the referee doesn't get involved. No, it's not. In fact, a proper referee intervention accelerates action. It gets you closer to an outcome. It doesn't deter it in the wrong way. And people say, well, MMA is realer than boxing, or, a referee not getting involved in this capacity is more real than the other one. There's no such thing as a real fight. Every fight has a set of circumstances that make it different or that differentiate it from the other one. There's no base set of what a normal fight is. Does a normal fight, is it bare knuckle or not? Are there multiple assailants or not? Are there weapons or not? Are there guns or not? Is the person injured or not? Is the contest with parity between the competitors or not? Is the person ready or not? Is it on a canvas or a brick ground or grass or not? Is it a surprise attack or not? This idea that you can find an idealized real fight is not real. And part of the reason people don't want a referee intervening is because they think that interferes with the realness that is a fiction. It's not a real thing. Referee intervention is necessary for a consumer product and a sport. I see this all the time. by the way, this is not a referee course. These are my ideas. I'm not teaching you something that they necessarily teach other referees. There's some overlap here, but these are my ideas. Referee intervention is necessary for a consumer product. People are always like, well, why do you want stand-up? Well, why do you want a officiant in amateur wrestling to move the action? That is literally part of their job. Ask any referee in amateur wrestling what part of their job is. Their job isn't to make you wrestle. Their job is to call it out when you don't. It is the competitor's job to wrestle. It is the coach's job to make that competitor wrestle. It is the job of the referee to know when people are failing that. Moreover, if you are going to have a spectator sport, some consideration about action is inevitable. It is important. It matters. You want to sell tickets to something, it has to be palatable. That doesn't mean you overrun with interference. It means you find a way to make sure the fight doesn't stall out. It doesn't just grind to a halt, which it will. It will. We have seen it in all the composite sports. It is important to recognize we are no less subject to some of those considerations. People are like, well, you stand up somebody and you put them back in the striking realm. How is that fair? We can debate whether that's the best choice, but we start fights on the feet. We start rounds on the feet. There is some idea about recharging action in that position as a way to make it a consumer product. But this is the point I'm trying to make as well, and a sport. Proper referee intervention is not the referee looking at a situation and saying to themselves, what could I do to make this more entertaining? They don't give out specific instructions. You should pass guard to the left. You should throw an uppercut. They just look for progress, or they look for action, or they look for some kind of work. This is good for the sport itself. It makes the sport more dynamic. I believe it accelerates our path in a fair way towards finding out who the better competitor is, although there are so many variables there that can be hard to know, but I generally believe that is true. This is not the referee as arbiter of entertainment. This is referee as catalyst for action when the competitors cannot be reasonably relied upon themselves to do it. Number 4, there you go. Not about entertainment, it's about progressing the action. These two are kind of the same. All right, well, whatever. 5, stand-ups are not necessarily the best solution, but they are simple and generally effective. I'm not married to the idea that standing fighters up when they're stalling out is the best solution. What I object to is the idea that it's a bad one. Number 1, it is effective. In the right circumstances, which is the majority of the time, you typically get a lot better action in a fight if they are stalling out on the ground and you stand them up. Not always, not every time. Sometimes there can be interference. We're going to look at that in a bad case. But generally speaking, it more or less accomplishes what you need it to. Very rarely do you stand people up and the fight gets less active. Moreover, it's just a simple solution. I actually think there are better ones. Again, I'm not married to the idea that it's the best one, but the reason we go to it is because it intuitively makes sense. If we're going to start rounds and start fights on the feet, why not restart if there is an inability of the competitors to drive action in a particular case? By the way, not merely with stand-ups, but with stalling out in the clinch or something like that. It works. You can say whatever you want about not liking it. Oh, it tilts it in one favor or the other. It can. It's not a perfect tool, I acknowledge, but it's pretty successful, generally speaking. Inconsistency among referees is not enough of a reason not to do it. I see this all the time. Oh, well, there's inconsistency in referees. This is true. There is inconsistency. Better training, I think, would make a lot of difference. Okay, fair enough. But you hear this complaint in amateur wrestling as well. You hear it in jiu-jitsu. I don't know how often you hear it in judo or sambo, but you hear it on any time where the referee is tasked with making sure there is constant activity in any kind of combative contest. Look, if you're going to have 2 humans fight and a third human adjudicate it with them, and then that human won't be doing the next one with 2 different humans, and that other referee won't be doing it with those 2 other humans, there is going to be inconsistency. Inconsistency is not a reason to let a sport and a consumer product grind to a halt. That is not a pure way of figuring out anything. In fact, there are some further considerations to take into mind. These underpin the other ones. Number one, the referee's job. What is the referee's job? The job is to call fouls, to protect the fighters, to maintain order over the space, to be essentially the arm of the commission inside the cage. I believe it is a tragic mistake and a huge problem if you don't allow the referee not to be the arbiter of entertainment, but to be the one making sure there is always activity by penalizing inactivity. Now, how you want to penalize that is up to you. Should we bring back Pride's yellow and red card system? I'm a little bit apprehensive about some of the financial penalties that people could incur, but I actually think it's a pretty good idea, especially for championship bouts. I like it. I mentioned stand-ups before. I don't think stand-ups are the best case all the time. In fact, I believe Anderson Silva, when he fought Daniel Cormier at UFC 200, I believe that he was stalling. He was using the lockdown underneath. This is not totally true, but virtually all attacks from the lockdown underneath require fishing for underhooks, and he never did. He stalled all the time. You should not stand those fighters up. You should penalize that fighter, take a point, take some money, whatever. There are a number of ways to do this. People always ask, well, if people are stalling standing, do you put them on the ground? If that would further action in a meaningful way, I'd consider it, but probably not. So you warn them. Take a point. Show a yellow card. Show a red card. We can come with solutions, but you have to empower the referee to not say, ooh, the crowd should be more entertained. These two competitors are no longer in a position to be trusted to further the action. I will assist them. I believe that should be a major component of the referee's job. Number two, anyone can stall. There's a big misconception about this. People think, oh, I don't want to have a stand-up because if someone gets a takedown and then the guy on bottom stalls, and he's just looking to get up to the top, I don't want to stand him up. This is precisely my point about the person with the fight between Cormier and Silva. He was doing the exact same thing. If I was a referee, I would not have stalled him. I would have started taking points. Right? And I guess given the current rule set, then you have to stand them up. But the idea would be you could have a mechanism where that would not be in play. But anybody can stall. Top guy can stall. Bottom guy can stall. The two can stall and then stalemate together. It is not one or the other. When people say all stand-ups should be earned, that literally doesn't make sense. The person who might be or who you would look to be standing might stall. The person on top could be stalling them out so they can't, or both could be stalling, in which case that rule wouldn't even apply. It's antiquated. Number three, stalling can be gamed. Yes, people can now, if you really enforce some kind of mechanism to further action from stalling, people will begin to accommodate that. They'll have a portion of their game where they try to stall because, depending on the circumstance, that could benefit them. I acknowledge that. But consider the alternative. When people say there shouldn't be stand-ups, understand when you do that, you are allowing one of the fighters in that scenario to stall and burn the clock. It's just another way of gaming the system, except in that circumstance, you have far less action. I don't see how that's a better alternative, right? Oh, I'll let you burn out the clock. I'll let you ride this position, whatever it may be, because I don't want any stand-ups. And as a consequence, it's just a different form of gaming it. At least under an aggressive anti-stalling enforcement, you can move the fight in a better position, in a more active way, which again is better for sport and better as a consumer product. Number four, it is impossible to rid the sport completely of stalling. It's always going to be a problem. Even with the best of rules, I acknowledge we can't fix it completely. However, in wrestling, dude, in wrestling, if you take like a step back, they'll call it on you. If you get pushed out onto the mats twice, they'll call it on you. And the higher the level goes, the faster they do it. Dude, they are aggressive about it, and it makes a dramatic impact. The idea that, and I'm not saying that we have to do everything that they do or even half of what they do, but I hear a lot of what I would consider extreme positions where people say things like, oh man, you can't have any stand-ups because that would just be, you would be disrupting the purity of this contest. Number one, there's no such thing as a real fight. All of these are a series of conditions and incentives and contexts, and they all differ dramatically. And two, you're allowing someone else to game the system a different way. And three, there are better ways to fix this problem. Number five, sports that seriously combat stalling or stalemates have competitor cultures that prioritize activity. Look at judo. Not every judoka who makes the move to MMA fights the same way. But consider Ronda Rousey, right? She would get after it, bro, because they're on a clock and they have anti-stalling rules everywhere. As I mentioned before, gripping on the same side without a throw, holding the belt, not throwing, blocking the hip and not throwing. Dude, they'll call that on you. They'll take points from you on that. They like to get right to work, man. That is judo culture in play. Think about wrestlers. Yes, as they transition to MMA, they might slow things down and set things up and things get a little bit differently. But what is wrestling fundamentally? It's a sprint. They're getting after it. You develop an attack culture. I have a hard time understanding how that's bad for sport. I don't want people attacking to the point where they're not fighting up to the best of their abilities. Of course, that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about alleviating the burden of the very bottom of inactivity. That's all we're talking about here. We're not talking about the high end, just the very low end where there's not enough effort being made. That's it. That's all we're talking about. And if you really take anti-stalling seriously, it can put you in a place where you can do great things and you can have a much better consumer product. Consider whatever one says about the popularity of amateur wrestling, they can fill up for the national championships in college for Division I. That airs on ESPN, and they can fill an entire arena full of that. Look at the World Championships of Jiu-Jitsu. Bro, they can't even fill a community college arena with that. Because Jiu-Jitsu has two things about it that I cannot stand. I cannot stand closeouts. That's where people who move through a bracket and meet in the finals, who are from the same team, just decide not to compete with one another. I find that ridiculous and indefensible. And then two is they don't really take stalling seriously. They have some stalling rules on the books, but they don't really do much to enforce it. Well, lo and behold, guys lock up 50-50, and they just stall it out. Another one I don't like is they don't have tech falls. You can rack up 50 points on a guy, and like Gordon Ryan does, and they don't call it. That's my own personal pet peeve. So in judo and in wrestling, these other component sports where they take stalling seriously, you get a higher degree of activity generally. I think that matters in the long run. Now, what are the rules by which a referee should intervene? I do not have time to go through the entire rule book. These are a set of my common beliefs. These are the operating conditions under which, when I view a fight, this is what I like to see. This is what I am looking for. This, I believe, is good for both combatants. It's good for the viewer at home, and it's good for the league. I believe everyone, more or less, wins under these conditions, okay? So let's take a look at a couple of them. In fact, you're going to say, well, Luke, you have nothing to say about UFC Wichita. Yes, I do. Here is Anthony Rocco Martin taking on Sergio Moraes. Look at the clock, and I'm going to put all these out for public consumption. They meet at 4 o'clock. He is on top in half guard. He has a guillotine grip, but a guillotine, for this to work, he would have to be on this side. So he's on the opposite side. Usually want to get cross body to defend it. So there's no choke here, or very highly unlikely. It may be uncomfortable. He may not be able to free himself, but this is where he is. 4 is the clock. Just watch. We've gone a whole minute. No one's progressed. Whoop. Hold on, got too far. Here we go. 241, no progression. Look at this. 230, no progression. By this time, referee Rob Hines is warning them to do something. No progression. Look at this. Stop for a second and consider something. In any time you're in any position like this, world champion, black belt, they know what to do here. They know there's a lot of different options they have. He could fight the hands and pull his head out. He could change his base. He could try and shrimp to guard. They all know the answer. In both cases, neither are electing to do that. When someone says all stand-ups should be earned, it literally doesn't even make sense. Both guys have decided that any subsequent step from here is too risky given the other one's strengths. So they have decided, by the way, first round and they're fresh. They have mutually decided they're going to wait for someone else to do that. He's going to wait for him, and he's going to wait for him. Well, the problem is you can't really do that in any kind of a sport. This is what I mean when I have people like intervening doesn't get us closer to the results. It gets you absolutely closer to the results. Now you could put them in a position to recharge and restate that action. They could not be trusted after a minute and a half. When I say trusted, I'm not like saying they're bad people, but competitors find themselves here. It's not a moral judgment, it's a competition judgment. People ask me, how long should a referee wait to intervene? My rule of thumb is about 60 to 90 seconds when nobody is taking any step. Literally not one hand fighting from either competitor. No shrimping from him. No attempt at posturing up. No pass. No swimming in. No switching of his base. Nothing. And you want to let that go? That doesn't make any sense. That literally makes no sense. How do you get closer to finding out who the real competitor is there or the better fighter is there? You don't. You just burn out the clock. You're letting him game it. And I'm not saying he was gaming it. He's probably waiting, all right, student Sergio, let's go. I'm going to do this, this, and this. I love watching Anthony Rocco Martin, but sometimes competitors get stuck. They need this guy to unstick them. Let's look at a bad case. All right? So this is, and I like referee Mario Yamasaki. He's a DC guy. He's moved back to Brazil, but he and his brothers are DC guys. He's come under a lot of fire. He has since recommitted himself to refereeing and getting better with best practices after that kind of disaster he had with Shevchenko and Cachoeira. So I don't want to pick on Mario Yamasaki here, but this is illustrative. So this is Cesar Mutanchi on top, and this is Daniel Sarafian underneath. Look at the time on the clock, 2:17, okay? I'm not going to show the whole thing here. I'm going to go black here. Okay, so this goes black in just a second. And now we're back. Look at the time difference. 2:09, he's still on top. We started at 2:17. A minute later, they've kind of pushed their way to the cage. I encourage you to go back and look at this. Wasn't a ton of guard activity. Sarafian tries to go deep half once. He gets stuffed. He goes for a pass once. Doesn't really work, and they kind of inch their way over here. I wouldn't call it super dynamic work, but active enough that they deserve to stay there. So nothing that has happened has been yay, but nothing that has happened requires referee intervention. However, this was what I consider to be a bad example of referee intervention. Now, you can see he leans here. I don't know what Sarafian was trying, but he nearly gives up the head and arm triangle here, right? This is a bad spot that Sarafian is in just a little bit. So watch the time on the clock. Mutanchi is going to try and he's going to, like a head and arm triangle, he's going to try and scoop this and come around. Now, he has to get to this side, which he's blocked by the fence from doing. So you're going to see him rotate Sarafian around, right? You're going to see this, like this. And Sarafian actually kind of helps him a little bit, which is a little bit weird, but okay. All right, now watch. Okay, let's take a look at this in semi-real time if I can. I don't know if I can. Okay, but just watch. Here, this is slow-mo. Watch this. He's going to push. 2. And he intervenes. I didn't like that intervention. That was not good for me. Let's go back. Here is a bad example. All right. So here, Sarafian puts his rear end against the cage at 106. Mutanchi tries to step over. He needs to be over here, but sometimes you can do it from mount if you're really strong to try and lock that up. There is no choke here. If Sarafian's arm is to the mat and your feet are to the cage, by the way, which is a no-no, and you're locked in half guard, I don't know why he didn't just step out and on top, but he didn't. Meanwhile, Sarafian is bridging. They are in the middle of something. They stopped moving, but they are in the middle of something. He is in the middle of bridging. He is in the middle of waiting for one mistake so he can scoop that out. And it goes, they reset, 3 seconds. He's still bridging a little bit here. Well, maybe he's gone down now. It doesn't matter. And he intervenes 7 or 8 seconds. I would have let that go much longer. I would have let that go. I'm not a referee. I'm not qualified to be a referee. But when I think about good examples of referee intervention, if this is still a perilous state for the choke and he's bridging and you're in this transition moment, you got to, encourage them to work through it, however way they're going to. But that is an example to me of inappropriate referee intervention. And you're like, well, Luke, if you allow some, you get some bad ones. Yeah, like I said, you're not going to get always good referee intervention. This is not a good example of it. But there are also real clear identifiable ways. If someone is working for a guard pass, You don't necessarily have to let them get the pass, but they got to always be working, always be working, always be working. They stopped here for a second because it was a transition one. Let them work through it for a second, then get in there. When they've decided that they no longer want to work, and we saw with Martin and Moraes 90 seconds where they just stayed there, well, then you can stand them up after multiple warnings. This, to me, was hasty. Here's one that I often hear about all the time as an example of this is why you don't want Khabib did nothing. They should have stood this one up, and they didn't. Conor would have been better off for it. No. This is another good example of the referee not being involved. So here they are, 4:08. He gets the takedown. Look at this on here. 4:08, okay? That is the time on the clock. Now, I can't go through this because this goes the entire round. Here's what I'll do. I'll make up something. Put the thumbnail back up in the studio, please. I'll jump to, how about the third minute, the 3 minutes. Let's just jump there, shall we? Okay, put it up, please. Here we are at the 3rd minute. Conor has inside butterfly and then one outside. Watch what happens. Here he is, putting his hands on the mat because he wants to get his back to the wall. Khabib trying to keep his weight down on top of him and hand fight, and then sit on top. So he's tripoding in, put his weight down, and then tries to scoop him and sit him back out. Once he scoops him, he wants to turn him and put his back on the mat. Here's my point. You can put the thumbnail back up. I'm going to keep doing this. Let's go 30 seconds in the future here. I'll go to 2:22. You're like, Luke, what's the point? I will show you the point. All right, I'm going to jump 30 seconds here. Put it back up. Conor has managed to pull his legs back out, and he has an overhook on one side. Let's watch what Khabib tries to do. He's sitting on this left leg. He's going to come to the side. Conor looks like he might be trying to lock up some kind of switch. He plants his hand on the mat to sit up, and Khabib still scooping, and then wants to turn his back towards the mat. That's what he's doing as he brings his legs and swings them over, right? Because what's the worst place you can be? Flat back on the mat. That's what he's trying to do, right? Conor pushing the head away, actively resisting. Put the thumbnail up, please. Let's go 30 seconds into the future. Let's look, see where we are. Let's see. Okay, go back. This is like 20 seconds, but I'll look at 30 anyway. Here he is, head pressure, leaning into Conor. Conor gets his hips scooped out. Here he is, inside butterfly on the instep. He's punching. He's trying to stand up. He gets to an elbow. He wants to have his back against the mat. Here comes Khabib with Conor underhooking the whole time. Here's Khabib again, sliding his knees out so he can come over again, step through, scoop them, and he wants to turn him to the cage. Conor actively resisting, posting the hand. Here's Khabib sliding over, and now Conor goes for some kind of a head control on this one and gets laid flat. Put the screen up, put the thumbnail up one more time. I'm going to keep doing this. Let's go 30 seconds into the future, shall we? You're like, oh, Luke, this is tedious. Yes, it is, but it makes my point for me. Let's go a minute up, put it back up. Now look where we are. He has come down. He's in half guard on top, right? So he has finally scooped enough times and turned him to get him flat on the mat. That is progression, ladies and gentlemen. And here he is on top in half guard. Here he is trying to punch. Conor, by the way, if you're flat on your back, you're not really doing much. You got to be underhooking, all right? But we don't want the guy on top to be stalling, so let's see what he does. All right, he's punching. Now he's going for the instep to help set up the pass. He is flattening one half of the hips. Conor is now framing. This is correct, right? He is doing good work here. He is framing the head away, and he might be trying to get off to the hips. Here you see Khabib trying to pass. Now he switches his base. Now he can threaten head control here and shoulder control, or he can come over the top and he can threaten the Kimura. Conor knows this, okay, because he has switched his base. This is active work, right? Put the thumbnail one more time. Let's go 30 seconds into the future, and I will show you. I want to illustrate a point here, if I may. Okay, put it back up, please. Here we are with 10 seconds left. He has now flattened it back up, and he's got shoulder control. By the way, he's been doing good ground and pound. All right? And he is even further to getting to the mount. Look at that. He could slide that out. The round ends here. What is my point in showing you this? I don't believe that the viewpoint that I am expressing here is extreme. In fact, it would allow for something just like this. This is fine to me. In every case you have here, you don't have thunderous ground and pound. You don't have Toriando motion passing. You don't have any of that. But what you have is steady, consistent work from both guys. He's having a strategy of just draining McGregor. Because if you can drain McGregor, he's a lot easier to handle than if he has full and complete energy. On the top, he was constantly looking to scoop, constantly looking to drag his hips, constantly looking to flatten him, constantly looking to pass. That's work. And the whole time for Conor, looking for underhooks, looking to get his back up against the fence, looking to get a butterfly hook, looking to stop the pass. Why would you stand that up? That's good work of referee non-intervention. Last one on this, if I may. Here is round 3. I want to point something out, and this is the only thing I'm going to show you. You can put the thing back up. Here is round 3 of Kamaru Usman and Tyron Woodley. The time on the clock is 4:28, 4:27, and they clinch. This was the point I was trying to make about Marc Goddard separating here. Sometimes it calls for them to push the action, and sometimes it doesn't. In the case of Khabib and Conor, plenty of action. In the case of Mutanchi and Sarafian, plenty of action. In the case of Martin and Moraes, not enough action. Here's another case where there's not enough action. Now look, he's going to bang on him with this overhook punch for a while, but this is going to go about 1 minute and 20, minute and 30 seconds. Look, okay? I want to point something out here. Both guys have an underhook. Both guys have an overhook. Bang to the body. These are good. These count. Let that go, right? Let that go. Right? Then he's going to do it. He just keeps going and going and going. Right? These are fine. Dig them. Let them know. This is solid work here. I don't mind this. But at some point, it slows down. And now he goes back to the 2-on-1. And both guys are doing it. He's throwing some knees a little bit. Not a whole lot here. Okay. Let's see. Again, knee in the inside there. All right. That's something. We're looking past. Again, no more of these big punches. Kind of leans up here. All right, they're kind of walking to one side. A little more punches to the body, but now Woodley's kind of covering it with his hip. All right, let's keep going here. All right, they kind of tries to lean out for a second. No dice. Woodley's not doing much, I grant. Here we go. Some knees to the body, and he pulls him a little bit. Okay, that's something. All right, kind of leans up back into him a little bit. All right, he's going back from that overhook punch. He's stomping a little bit. All right, and there's Marc Goddard clearly warning them to do something, which I'm going to explain in a second. They're not doing anything. A little bit pitter-patter puncher, da-da-da-da-da. Just kind of hanging out. All right. Okay. And they're just going to keep going with this. Look. And then he intervenes. What did you not see there? And I made this point previously. From either competitor. When Kamaru was punching early on in the clinch, that was fine. But then Woodley got wise to it. No one, not Kamaru Usman and not Tyron Woodley, no one pummeled in. No one framed and broke away. No one broke away and level changed. No one got hip to hip. These two guys, you're talking about some of the best wrestlers in MMA. They know if we're in this position, there's a place I have to do. There are steps I have to take to advance this position. You mean to tell me after sitting there from, and I'll go to the timestamps here in a second. You can put the thing back up. I'm not going to show this one. It doesn't matter. And they do this again, twice in the round. Hang on here. You mean to tell me that when two guys are in a neutral position and they're no longer actively landing any kind of strike of consequence, and they're not pummeling in, and they're not fighting the hands, and they're not framing, and they're not separating, and they're not level changing, you should let that go? Why would you let that go? It doesn't put you any closer to figuring out who's better. You're letting them either advertently or inadvertently stall it out. That's not better MMA. That's less MMA. That's not more MMA. That's a worse version of it. I don't agree with that even a little bit. And then, hold on 1 second. All right. Just as proof to you, you can put this back up one more time. Please take a look at this and put it back up. Please take a look at this for yourself. Look at the evidence I'm talking about. Here are the timestamps for you. Take a screenshot. In the Martin Moraes fight, from 4 to 225. In the Sarafian Mutanchi fight, from 217 to 55. I am giving you the pieces of evidence upon which to draw your own conclusions. But I believe that this exonerates me. 2 more. For Habib McGregor, from 408 to the end of the round. Show me a period of inactivity that merited a stand-up. I didn't see it. And then last but not least, round 1, he let it go from 139 to 50. Round 3, he let it go from 426 to 322, from 240 to 124. And then in the round 4 was the one stand-up. 429 was the initiation of the position. He stands him up at 145. I am giving you the timestamps. I don't want to hear any critique of this that doesn't take this into account. I am showing you the evidence. Please, please listen to me. Referee interventionism is not about having them involved all the time like it is in amateur wrestling. You can see cases where the fight might not be that exciting and you let it go. But it takes a subtle and deft hand, I recognize. But there are also times when a world champion jiu-jitsu guy and a black belt and 2 elite wrestlers lock into each other and they need someone else to help them move. I believe that the referee is well positioned to move that along. All right. And that is the Monday Morning Analyst. Okay. All right. Very quickly, because I am short on time here, like I always am. Let's bring Danny Segura right back if we can. I know we got to make some changes here on the set. My man Joel has to fix things. Oh Lord, what are we doing here? I mean, there's a million donks hitting me up on my thing. All right. Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know what we're doing. I get off on the set and people like message me while I'm on air being like, you should listen to what I have to say. And I'm like, well, I will as soon as we get off the air, but I can't while we're on the air. Dad. Just throwing old dad under the bus. All right. Let's go back to Danny Segura if we can. I believe we're all set up and ready to rock. All right, Danny, I have made my point on that. I am no longer going to beat that dead horse, but what did you think? Real very quickly. Do I make any sense at all?
Yeah, I thought you did. We definitely need more referee intervention, and the referees need to know when that intervention needs to be applied.
Yep.
I think, and that's when it comes down to, I feel like it mostly plagues the grappling aspect of stalling. Like it's a lot harder to stall while striking.
Yes. Can be done.
It can be done.
Take a point.
Yep.
Take a point.
But, for example, that Kamaru Usman Woodley, they were not looking to advance position. Usman was completely content with staying there.
So was Woodley.
Yep.
So somebody help him. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it's very modest. All right. Let's do it. I only have time for a few more of these, so we got to burn through them, sir.
All right. Well, let's get into it right away. There's a big welterweight fight happening this weekend, so let's talk about that.
Okay.
Hey, Luke. Name's Chris, calling from Smyrna, Georgia, home of the Campbell Spartans. You should be familiar with them.
Yeah.
Luke, what I want to know is...
They have lice at that high school.
With a win on Saturday night, would that put Darren Till back in the title picture? Or do you think that it's too soon coming off his loss from Woodley? The UFC has spoken about Till Usman in the past. Where do you think that puts Darren Till? Thanks.
You have to beat Gamebred thoroughly to get my respect. Lots of people have eked by him, but that's hard to do too. You really want to make a statement, you gotta viciously KO that guy, which by the way, very hard to do or submit.
Extremely difficult.
I'll say this: you go and you finish Jorge Masvidal. To me, that is extremely impressive.
Yeah.
You just beat him. I don't know. One more fight. I'm not sure against who, but maybe Askren or something.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the line is quite long, and we already have a title fight set up between Usman and Covington. Then you got The guy who beat Curtis Millender, right?
Elizu Zaleski dos Santos. Yeah,
yes, he's on a.
He's awesome, right?
Yeah, he's sick. He's on a current 7-fight win streak, right? Ben Askren is back in.
He looks like a La Liga player, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Plays for Girona or something.
Yeah. Sporting Gijón.
Yeah. Dude, I don't know. And what's up with the 170? I thought, Darren Till said he was going to go up to 185 after his title fight.
Well, I mean, these guys, I think they figure out, well, you know what? Here's some couple tweaks I could make, and if I get this big win, dude, you're fighting Jorge Masvidal in a main event in London, it's big doings, and I think they feel like I'll lose position if I make the move. There's a lot of fear about moving weight classes. That's why these guys literally get forced into it by health complications. So it's just, a lot of lessons learned the hard way, I guess.
Yeah, but I think if he beats Jorge Masvidal, even with a vicious KO, I still think he's a bit far from that title fight. I think he's at least 2 more fights after that. So yeah, I don't see an immediate, because also his title fight with Woodley was so one-sided, with someone we consider obviously an elite, obviously being a champion. So I don't think they'll plug him in that quick.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. You got time for one more?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. You want to talk about Daniel Cormier or Tony Ferguson?
Tony.
Okay, let's do Tony.
Tony's always fun.
Hey, Luke. My name's Cass from Oregon. I'm a big Tony Ferguson fan. I was just wondering what you think he should do next. What's his next fight? It's kind of sucks that he's not in the title fight. He's my favorite fighter. I'm just wondering what you think he should do next, All right, thanks.
I think he should see what happens with Holloway and Poirier. See what Holloway's going to do at 145. I think, and see what Khabib's going to do. He can't. There's just not enough. I mean, I know that's not a satisfying answer.
See what Connor's going to do.
Well, okay, but I'm saying there's just not enough information to know at this point. If you're going to pass up that, you gotta let some events transpire and then make a call based on that. Because, dude, I know we had that debate about the interim titles. Here's the thing. If Max is not going to give up 145, let's say Max beats Dustin, or let's say Dustin wins, is it really crazy to think that Tony might get next if Conor doesn't come back and Khabib needs a fight? I know these are a lot of ifs, but is that crazy?
It's not.
You know what I'm saying?
It's not crazy.
So I don't know what to tell.
Basically, what you're asking, is it crazy to see an interim champion get skipped over? No.
And in these circumstances where the guy hasn't lost since 2012,
and he was another interim champion,
right?
Whatever that's worth.
It's just it's bananas. It's bananas. I don't know what the roadmap is here. I think he just has to figure out let these things transpire and then make a read based on the available cards you've been dealt.
Yeah, at this point, you can't make any possible decision. I mean, the only decision you could probably make is fight somebody else, but I don't think that'd be a very smart one because I don't think it does anything for you at this point, even if it's, say, an Ala Quinta, a top dog, right? I don't think it does anything for you at this point. At this point, you're looking at the winner of Holloway and Poirier and then see what happens with Khabib. So just wait it out, man. I mean,
I agree.
That's all you can do.
We have any more?
Yeah, we got more.
Well, one more very quickly, then I have to go.
All right. This is a fun one. Let's talk about weight classes.
Okay.
Hi, Luke. My name is Chris from San Luis Obispo, California.
Home of Chuck Liddell.
My question is, it
That's
seems
right.
like a lot of UFC title fights in recent memory have been pretty decisive. The only exceptions coming to mind are maybe Rose and Joanna, DJ and Cejudo, and Romero and Whitaker. But my question is, what divisions in the UFC do you think are the biggest shark tanks right now, and which ones do you think have a competition that's a little bit closer to championship level? I feel like it's a good sort of thing to evaluate every year or so as the sport progresses and all that. Thanks for answering. Have a good day.
So I think basically what he meant with the second part is what divisions do you see the belt sort of switching hands, and what divisions do you think the belt will sort of be steady with one champion?
I still think there's a lot of unanswered questions at 155.
Well, let's start with the big boys. Heavyweight, Shark Tank or no?
Semi. I think there's some questions about Francis's resurgence. Stipe believes with another crack he could do some work. DC is getting older, although he beat him in a round, but there are some interesting questions there. Sure, okay.
Yes, I think that especially after DC retires, man, that's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah. Light heavyweight, no. I mean, let's be real. No.
Yeah, Jones is going to hold on to that for.
It's going to take a mistake or something catastrophic.
All right. Middleweight, Shark Tank or no?
Yeah, I think so. We got a lot of young. You know what? There's a lot of youth there.
Yes.
Which is why that gives you some intrigue about. And then we'll see what happens with Romero and things like that. Yeah, Paulo Costa. Yeah, I would call that a Shark Tank. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Welterweight Shark Tank.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, just changed hands, right? I mean, proof of concept there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, 155.
I think so. Hard to say. Habib might be very dominant. It's not clear. Yeah. But, Tony Ferguson, Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier.
Questions out there.
Yeah, those tough bastards, man. So
145.
No, I think Max is head and shoulders better than everybody. Now, Volkanovski's interesting. Yeah. Let's see how he does against Aldo. But if Aldo puts him away, then no, there's really nobody who's competition.
By the way, quick parentheses, I hate that fight, but anyways.
You know what? It's very hateable, but I love it only because Aldo's like, I'm sorry, you a contender? You a contender? I just love that.
On paper, it'll be fun. Yeah, because both are fantastic fights. I don't like what it does to the division.
It tears it up if he wins, Aldo wins. But I just love his competitive ambition. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I respect that for sure.
Okay.
All right, 135. Shark Tank.
Shark Tank.
TJ Dillashaw.
Absolutely, Shark Tank. I mean, I know Cruz has been out for a while, but that's kind of interesting. What's going to happen with Marlon Moraes? Aljamain Sterling Cejudo. Yeah, absolutely. And then flyweight doesn't exist.
I suppose. You want to... All right, women's featherweight.
No, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's not even a tank.
Yeah,
right?
Amanda Nunes went up there and just, crushed everybody. 135. No, I think Amanda's better than everybody there too.
Really?
Yeah.
I think
if Shevchenko were still there, I'd be like, but
I think Holly can maybe
the stick and move, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
cardio 5 rounds.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight.
Toughness as well.
So semi, I call it semi.
Yeah.
125, bro.
Completely.
They got nothing for Valentina.
Shevchenko.
I respect them too. I think they're all good fighters, but
you're
talking about a generational talent in Valentina Shevchenko.
Shevchenko's one of the best fighters.
Dude, I think she beat Amanda the second time they fought. To be quite honest with you.
And considering like what Amanda has done recently with Cyborg, like that just makes it even,
And then 115, Shark Tank, absolute Shark Tank.
I think so too.
I think so. You got some hierarchy there. But dude, Tatiana Suarez on her way up. Cynthia Calvillo is on her way up.
Livinha Souza.
Yeah, a lot. There's a lot of really good talent there. So yeah, man, there you go. There's an answer to the question for the gentleman from Oregon. All right, I got one more interview, Danny. So let me do that now. All right. Yep. Good work this week, my friend. As always, you can call up Danny at 844-866-2468. International callers, the MMA Hour at voxmedia.com. Just send a voicemail clip. All right. Earlier today, I spoke to Alexander Gustafsson about facing Anthony Smith in his next fight in June in Sweden. Here's our conversation. All right, let's go to our next guest. He is one of the top light heavyweights in the world. He's going to be fighting in his native Sweden in his next bout. There's a lot to discuss. Let's go to him now. Alexander Gustafsson joins us here on the hotline. Alex, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you for making time for us. Let's get right down to it. You're taking on Anthony Smith in your next fight back in Sweden. Let's start with Anthony. Why is he the right fight for you next?
No, just fighting in whoever give me. He just had a fight. He's in shape. He showed some heart in his last fight with John, so I think it's a good matchup for the fans, and they will see. They will see a really good fight. He has some good skills on his feet and good grappling too. So I'm looking forward to it.
What did you make of his performance with John?
I'm not the right guy to judge him. I just fought John and lost myself. So it is. He showed some heart and he took some damage and just kept moving. So he's a warrior I can't wait to have him over and give the fans a really good show.
So let's talk about the timing on this. You could have waited till summer, but this fight, if I'm not mistaken, is going, well, it is a summer, I guess, June 1st. Is that the right time of you for between your last fight and this one? It's like 6 months or so. Sounds like a good rebound time.
Yeah, it is. I actually wanted to fight earlier than this, but this was just the next one for me. So I'm in training. I've been training for a while now, and I had some time off after the John fight, and I just healed up, and now I'm ready to go, and it's in my hometown too, so it can't be better than this. All the other shows has been just a success, so yeah.
How are you feeling about how the your fight with John went? I realize it didn't go your way. Now that you've processed it, when you look back on it, what do you think?
No, it was a really bad performance from, that I did, and no, I wasn't myself really. I just went in there, and I tried to just stay to game plan and everything, but no, he just found a way very, very early to neutralize my game and put me where he's strong, and yeah. Not so much more to say about that, I think. You saw. The rest you saw.
Yeah. But so you didn't psychologically beat yourself up over it?
No, it's all good. Hey, spot 1 second. Spot it. Just 1 second. 1 second. Sorry.
It's okay.
Kan du komma snabbt? Hon har något i munnen. Jag har en intervju här. Jag måste ta den.
Sounds like an IKEA store.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, yeah. Where were we?
Basically just that after the Jones fight, it didn't go your way, but you weren't too emotionally or psychologically troubled with it in the end.
No, I just hate to lose, but it's a sport, and John is the best guy out there, and yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's I think I could have done much better, but it is what it is, and I'm just gonna take it as a man, and it's a sport, and even if you lost, even if I had my third title shot, and I lost the third one, I'm still not feeling bad about it or anything like that. Just family moves, life moves on. I got a family at home, so I'm just keep doing what I'm doing and take the next fight and the next fight after that, and start from scratch a little bit.
So this Smith fight, this is still for you the first step back towards the title opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah. But with that said, I'm not even thinking about the title anymore. I've been thinking the title now for a very long time, and it's just been a stressful thing for me. It's been there all the time around me. The title. It's been a very long time between my fights. I just have to sit back for a while and take this fight now and take the next fight after that and be more active and try to be a better fighter and be smarter, and I'm still 32 years old. I don't think I'm old in the game yet. I still think that I have a lot more to give, and I feel my body's fresh and I feel good, so having fun training. So I'm just taking this fight now in Stockholm, and I beat Anthony Smith up, and then we'll take it from there. See what's the next challenge will be.
Fighting in your home country, is it the pressure good for you or is it bad for you?
It's good. I believe it's good. It's I never lost in this arena, the Globe. I think it's a really good arena. I have a good wife from there. I have, what is it now? I got 2 wins there, and I got 1 loss at Tele2. So I think they're also with me, and having the fans behind me is a really push. You have wherever you train and warming up for the fights, you have your friends around you. You have friends that will compete, and we push each other. So the Swedes are going to war basically, and can't wait to just go in there again and prove that I'm better than what I showed the last time.
So this win, if you get it over Smith, yes, it's to get back in the win column, and yes, it's obviously to ascend the ranks. But it sounds like what you're saying is, I'm going to let the wins take care of the rankings for me. You just want to get better as a fighter and as a competitor. Is that a fair read?
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly how I feel right now. I'm done thinking about. I have to move up to be a title contender. I have to stress. I have to it's none of that anymore. I'm just taking one fight at a time and trying to fight the best guys and have fun doing it. And try to be smarter and better.
What do you think it says that you said you didn't feel like yourself when you fought John, and Anthony Smith said something kind of similar as well?
Yeah, well, I didn't perform like I used to. I didn't have the footwork going, and I have no excuses. It's not that. It's just like, it was, I couldn't really after that, when he got me with that knee, I couldn't really, find the rhythm again. I just, I couldn't move like I did before. And I just had a lot of pain after that. And I never had that type of pain in my career before in a fight. I usually, of course, you have pain. You get shots from everywhere, and you get back. You just keep pushing. But he just stopped me right there. And I tried to kick. I tried to move, working with my footwork, trying to kick him or attack, be explosive, but none of that worked. I just couldn't with my groin, and yeah, so that's basically it. And it took me down. Nobody can hold me down. Nobody can hold me down. Not DC, not John. Nobody. When he took me down there, when he finished me, I couldn't move because of my groin. He just passed. He just went to half guard and just went up and did the crucifix stuff on me, and nobody does that to me. But I wasn't 100%. I just felt that I had so much pain in my groin that I couldn't really get back into my rhythm again. And with that said, I don't use this as an excuse or anything like that. He did what he had to do to beat me, and John is the best guy out there. So, I don't feel like I'm thinking about that loss nowadays. It is what it is, and I'm just moving forward now.
Biggest challenge that Anthony Smith offers is what?
Sorry?
The biggest challenge that Anthony Smith offers. When you think about his biggest challenge is what?
Yeah, he's a big hitter, and he has a lot of heart, and he has a lot of fights behind him, and he's a guy with a lot of routine behind him, and it's going to be a real challenge, and that's what I'm doing, is to challenge myself. And when I beat him, I'm going to just move in the rankings. If I don't beat him, if he beats me, then maybe I don't have it anymore. So I just take it from there.
Are you surprised by his quick turnaround?
You mean that he comes back and fight again?
So soon. Yeah.
Well, he's in shape, and he feels like I feel, like he just lost, and he wants to prove that he's better than what he showed, and he just want to get back to fighting and win again. So I think he's in shape, and I think he's ready for this, and he's ready to fight me, and he wants to beat me. So I understand him totally.
Well, we could talk to you forever, but we're a little bit short on time. Alex, we really appreciate it. It'll be June 1st at the Ericsson Globe Arena in Stockholm, Sweden. Can't wait to see it. Gustafsson versus Smith, the headlining bout for UFC Fight Night 152. Thank you so much, Alexander. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, there he goes. The great Alexander Gustafsson. Really looking forward to that. Man, could have talked to him forever, but, well, all in a day's work, I suppose. Okay, so how about this? We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks to all the guests who stopped by and to everyone else. Again, keep sending those tweets using the hashtag #TheMMAHour. Keep calling us 844-866-2468. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. And until next time, stay frosty.